The story begins in a seemingly ordinary city. Suddenly, a boy appears with his body wrapped in a blue glow. Confused, he looks around and then questions where he is at that moment. A bus passes by and he sees himself in the reflection looking even more confused. He starts wondering who he is and what his name is. Then he begins to examine his clothes, realizing that he is wearing a military uniform. Looking up, he notices that he doesn't remember his name, what he was doing, or where he was. Interrupting his thoughts, the sound of crying emerges. Without thinking twice, the protagonist rushes forward and ends up punching a tree. The punch is strong enough to break it in half. Nervous, he realizes that he moved by instinct upon hearing that sound. Looking at his hand, he is astonished because it possesses superhuman strength. Once again, his thoughts are interrupted when someone calls him agent. The one who called him is actually an ad from the auxiliary combat system implanted in his own body seeking answers. The agent in question asks where he is and what year it is. In response, the AI states that based on the protagonist's peripheral vision, it appears they are in the capital, Seoul, in the year 2024. Then, the AI comments that, in fact, he is a military model created in the year 2082. With arms crossed, the boy questions whether he actually came from the future and ended up returning to the past. Then, the AI states that, according to its database, his memory was reset and he has not recovered any information. Meanwhile, an elderly man is calmly driving his truck when he notices that the signal begins to fail. He suddenly brakes and starts skidding on the road. At that moment, the AI issues a warning about the risk of a traffic accident. Then it orders the agent to avoid the car. However, the vehicle in question ends up crashing and a metal rod is launched toward the hero. The AI warns that the dangerous object is approaching. Displaying immense agility, the protagonist manages to dodge it with ease, but the metal ends up hitting another person behind him. The person starts screaming in pain, saying that a metal stake is in their body. At that moment, the man collapses to the ground, his body trembling, while people scream for an ambulance. Then, the system warns that it is a wounded civilian rubbing his eye. The hero comments that he saw red and blue screens and asks what they are. Then, the AI explains that it is a visual projection from the Visual Assistance Service, characterized by floating screens. At that moment, the hero realizes that thanks to this, he was able to dodge easily, but he asks if an innocent civilian might die within 5 minutes. Nervous, he comments that it is impossible to reach the emergency room in that time and asks if there is a way to save him. Then, the AI suggests that he perform emergency field surgery. Next, it reveals that he himself can perform it, as long as he knows the patient's condition quickly. The protagonist approaches, saying that he still has many questions, but first they need to save the injured person. Kneeling beside the man, he begins to assess his condition. Nervous, he says that the wound is deep and that, therefore, the surgery will be difficult and asks if the AI can really handle it. The AI explains that it has identified the necessary tools and that if there is a needle, thread, small knife and disinfectant, the surgery can be performed. A random man joins the conversation and asks the hero if he can provide first aid. Then, he questions whether he can really help without thinking twice. The protagonist states that he will need a needle, thread, knife, and disinfectant. Shortly after, several people gather all the materials while wondering if that guy is really a doctor. Where they question what he is trying to do, another person comments that he really doesn't look like a doctor. They also wonder if he will get an infection and die if he performs surgery with those materials. Hearing all this, the protagonist begins to sweat nervously. Then, he whispers that the AI already has the tools and asks what it is waiting for. Responding, the AI states that if the protagonist grants temporary control, it can move his hands on its own. Confused, the hero thinks that he would really like to ask what that means, but he realizes that there is no time to waste, so he agrees to allow it for now. At that moment, his hands begin to emit a blue glow and quickly start moving on their own. The AI is able to move his hands with great precision and speed. Starting to feel confident, the hero thinks that with this, the surgery will truly be a success. However, the system warns that the loss of strawberry juice is beyond the limit and that the survival rate is decreasing. Nervous, the boy wonders what that means and asks the AI if it can really save this person. However, it ends up not responding. Looking at his hand, he realizes that it has stopped moving. At that moment, the person lying on the ground seems to take their last breath. Some time later, the man is taken to the emergency room. One of the doctors asks the others if they are finished and inquires about the patient's condition. Responding, the surgeon says that he survived. Then the doctor asks if the injury was not as serious as they had imagined. Surprisingly, The surgeon says that if the bleeding had not been stopped, the man would have died before even leaving the ambulance. The man certainly lost a lot of red juice, but most of it had already been dealt with. She explains that she sutured both externally and internally using ordinary thread, the kind used for sewing, but the most shocking part was that the stitches were uniform, as if they had been made by a sewing machine. Hearing this crazy story, the doctor says that the man must be ridiculous because he really cannot believe it. Interrupting their conversation, the man arrives at the scene. He introduces himself as the detective on the case, named Park Kim-young, and asks about the patient's condition. Responding, the surgeon says that he is stable. Then the truth of the matter is that the surgery was performed in the middle of the street. The detective confirms that this is indeed true, surprises both doctors confused. He asks if this is something difficult to do. The surgeon responds that yes, it is not the kind of surgery one can perform in the middle of the street. Then she asks if, by any chance, the person who performed the surgery is some kind of master swordsman. The other doctor, worried, asks what kind of needle was used. The detective responds that he bent a needle from a sewing kit. They ask where this person is now. The detective says that as soon as he finished, he quietly left the scene before the ambulance arrived. Meanwhile, in a public restroom, the hero comments to the AI that he thought had given up, but it explains that it was merely calculating the next steps of the operation. Changing the subject, he asks why the lost its memory, and it responds that apparently its memory was reset. Confused, the hero asks if it remembers its name, and it replies that no name has been defined at that. He says he will give it a name and asks what it is. It responds that it is an AI from the auxiliary combat system implanted in his body. At that moment, the boy suggests naming it John Giant, which means combat AI. Then it is decided that this will indeed be its name, but the AI remains silent, irritated. The hero asks why it is not responding, and it states that its name has been defined as such. After the conversation, the boy leaves the restroom, saying that was really fast. Looking at his shirt, he notices an emblem. Then the AI informs him that it is the uniform of the Earth Union Special Military Operations. The protagonist suggests that he was probably an agent of these forces who lost his memory. He comments to the AI that was created in 2082 and asks why they are in 2024, but it says that there is not enough information. It also explains that it cannot retrieve this information from the internet because the ACE data input is restricted to prevent the risk of hacking. It informs him that he receives data exclusively by importing information through his five senses and that, for example, if he eats something delicious, he will have the same experience. It also explains that it requires permission for temporary control and can only assist when combat is necessary. It also warns that there is something it cannot do. Although it can assist with weapons, it cannot attack directly. Then the protagonist realizes that, to gather information about what they are doing there, he needs to experience everything through his body. Sometime later, he is walking through the city streets. Looking to the side, he notices that he can obtain a lot of information at an internet cafe. He understands that this is common knowledge, but the problem is that they need money to enter the place. Pulling out his empty pockets, he states that he is completely broke and that, at the moment, he needs to get 10,000 won. He asks the AI if it can use his vocal cords to sing, and it responds that it can, if necessary, in the field. With this in mind, the hero grants permission, and sometime later they head to a kind of park. While holding a spoon, he asks the AI if singing is necessary in battle, and it responds that the skill indeed boosts morale on the battlefield. Exuding shyness, the boy asks why they need to sing in this place and questions how he will be able to compete with that band. Responding, the AI says that if he performs at a higher level than the band, he will attract people's attention. However, he says that he will only look like an idiot in this place, but the AI ignores him and announces that the show is about to start. Then, they quickly drop a cardboard box on the ground to collect money. At that moment, he prepares to start singing. As he sings with a spoon, several people end up having their attention drawn to him as someone comments that this is their favorite song. The hero strikes a pose like an idol and questions whether this is necessary, but the AI says that engaging the audience is essential. Suddenly, several people attending the band's show realize that there is a singer nearby putting on an incredible performance. Without thinking twice, they all start leaving the show. Meanwhile, the hero begins singing some kind of melodic song. Many people start questioning who the singer is and how he can switch between deep and high notes like that. Everyone notices that he is repeating the verse, and at that moment, the AI informs him that the song was collected today, so it doesn't have either the beginning or the end. But in any case, they managed to collect the money they needed with the box in hand. The protagonist tells the AI that it was a good job and that they should leave quickly. Without thinking twice, the hero starts running away from the entire crowd from inside an internet cafe, A blonde girl watches him through the window, amazed by what she just saw. She is in a second-hand bookstore and is informed that the hot table ordered ramen, so she is on her way. Blushing, she says she would like to hear more of that song. Meanwhile, the hero talks about the chance to go to the internet cafe to find information. The AI says that the priority is to infiltrate the environment and blend in naturally since they need to find a way to contact the command center with that in mind. The protagonist heads toward the internet cafe and notices a sign on the door stating that they are hiring. Amazed, the hero says that he has found a way to do this and that they even provide food for the employees working there. At that, the AI informs him that if he succeeds in infiltrating, both the information gathering and the food supply issue will be solved already inside the building. The hero says that if they get the job, they can ask to stay there for a while as they need a place to sleep. The AI warns that if they secure a place to stay, food, clothing, and shelter will all be guaranteed. Jarvis explains that his military uniform has a camouflage feature and that, using a special memory fiber, it can take on a new appearance. He mentions that the clothing can be divided into multiple pieces and can also be reassembled in different formats. Surprised, the hero says he will try to do that. In just a few seconds he manages to change his outfit, but the result turns out to be ridiculous, making him look like a poorly made Power Ranger. At that, the young man says that this outfit looks like the one from the band he saw earlier, but the AI says nothing. At that moment, the protagonist notices that several people are starting to climb the stairs. Everyone begins looking at the young man who is standing at the top of the stairs wearing a kind of Power Ranger outfit. His two companions are shocked. They walk past the young man, completely ignoring him. This really seems like a very awkward situation. Then, the boy says that apparently he didn't like his outfit very much, and the AI responds that this is a possibility. With no choice, he decides to try again. This time, the attempt is successful, resulting in a normal outfit. Sometime later, the protagonist finally enters the internet cafe with his eye. The AI begins scanning the entire place. It informs him that 96 of the people present are currently playing online games. It also confirms that the convenience store has been checked along with the payment methods. It informs him that the dining area has also been verified as well as the suitable spaces for temporary residents. Jarvis states that this place is perfect for their current situation. With arms crossed, an older man asks the protagonist if he's applying for the job. He asks if by any chance he has an ID and a resume, but the protagonist replies that he doesn't. Crying, the employee explains that he can make the resume there and just bring his ID tomorrow since they urgently need someone at that moment. The man begins judging the protagonist. He thinks the boy has a handsome face, but he looks like the type who can only make instant noodles. He asks the young man if he can use a frying pan, saying that since he devours food, he should at least know the basics of cooking. Intervening, the AI comments that they have military tactical cooking skills for soldier management. Quickly, the hero responds that he can cook, and the employee gets excited. Looking around, the AI notices that the ingredients for fried rice are being identified. The young man asks if she can make fried rice, and she responds that she can. Then, she requests temporary control of his hands. Without hesitation, the protagonist grants permission. Quickly, he heads toward the kitchen and refrigerator to grab all the ingredients. With a knife in hand, he says that his body is moving lightly, almost as if it remembers how to do this. Looking back, the employee is shocked by the incredible kitchen skills of the newcomer. Not understanding anything, the man thought he would just heat up frozen rice, but he realizes that the boy is cooking from scratch. Then, he wonders how he is doing it so quickly. A short time later, the boy hands over the dish, announcing that it is ready, and in shock, the man realizes that he couldn't even see his hands moving. The man understands that being fast is important, but if it doesn't taste good, it's useless. So, he assumes that since the boy cooked so fast, the food must be raw. At that moment, he decides to taste it. Nervous, the hero wonders if, by any chance, the food turned out bad. After tasting the dish, the man puts down the spoon and exclaims that he can't handle this. Completely in love with the food, he declares that this is an internet cafe and that the boy should bring a soy drink here. Giving him a pat on the back, he says that for a moment he felt like he was in his favorite bar. At that moment, the blonde girl appears, calling him uncle. Introducing her, the man says that this is his niece, Sha, and that she also works there, so they should get along. Blushing, the girl realizes that the protagonist is the same one who is sitting outside in shock. The hero asks how she figured that out. Surprised, she asks why he wants to work here when he has a voice like that, and he replies that he is good at singing and also other things. Amazed, The man says he is happy to have the young man there and comments that his niece can't even make instant noodles, being a total disaster in the kitchen. Smiling, the man asks if the boy has a preferred work schedule. Responding, the young man says he prefers to work part-time and would like to work only at specific times with a flexible schedule. He also says that he noticed earlier that there is a storage area and asks if he could stay there temporarily while working. Suspicious, the man realizes that these conditions are quite demanding, but also that the boy is too talented to pass up. The owner was envious of his competitor, so he thinks of using this opportunity to build his own reputation for good food. He says that the boy can sleep there, have free meals, and even earn double the salary if he manages to sell more food than usual. Suddenly, 2 customers enter and the girl says she wants to eat before playing. However, a boy with glasses explains that internet cafes also serve food. Still, she insists that internet cafe food is terrible. With his eyes locked on the money, the protagonist states that they should try the food first before judging whether it is good or bad. A short time later, the hero is cooking while the employees watch in amazement at his determination. Then, he asks the blonde girl to bring in a plate. Surprised that it is already ready, she asks how he made it look so perfect so quickly. At that moment, the owner tells his niece to take the food to the customers immediately. Meanwhile, one of the customers comments that the newcomer was quite bold. She wonders how good internet cafe food can really be and says that this is totally ridiculous. Then, the boy with glasses tells her to just order, taste it, and leave quickly. The girl arrives with the food announcing that it is ready, which surprises them both. Seeing the food up close, they are shocked by its appearance. Nervously, the boy comments that he only ordered fried rice, and amazed the girl tells him that's exactly what he ordered, so he should enjoy it. Although a bit hesitant, the red-haired girl says they should try it then. Each of them takes a spoonful, and as soon as they put it in their mouths, both are in shock. Having a sensation from another world, it feels as if the taste is so magnificent that they are transported to the past. Crying, they stare at each other and realize that this is the same flavor they tasted a long time ago. They start shouting, saying that this is incredibly delicious and that this place definitely has the best fried rice in the neighborhood. Upon hearing this testimony, several customers become curious and also order the fried rice to try it. The niece then enters the kitchen and announces that they receive 12 orders at once, leaving her uncle completely shocked. Looking at the protagonist, he asks if they can handle all the orders. Looking to the side, the boy asks the AI if it can make 12 more dishes like that. Responding, she says yes, and that tactical field cooking also works for large quantities. With a kitchen knife in hand, the boy tells his Jarvis that this is amazing and that he will give it control, instructing it to prepare 15 generous meals. 3 hours pass at the internet cafe. With eyes shining for money, the man asks for the boy's name. He informs him that food sales have increased incredibly in just 3 hours, and that he will receive double pay per week. Insistently, the man asks again for the young man's name. Hesitantly, he responds that his name is Mei Kenjin. The owner then confirms that everything is settled and that he will arrange a storage room for him. Meanwhile, the niece collapses on the floor, declaring that the leftover fried rice was delicious. At that moment, the AI asks the protagonist if he remembered his name, and the hero simply says no, that he just improvised. Sometime later, the owner mentions that there are more orders and asks Jarvis if he can handle them, and he replies that he can. Kong says that they have secured a place to stay, but to receive payment, he needs an identity and asks if Yaya can hack the system. Responding, she says yes, and that systems from the 21st century up to 2082 can be hacked with her abilities. With mischief in his eyes, the hero asks if she can also hack a bank, but Yaya says that is impossible. Crossing his arms, the protagonist says he shouldn't have had so much hope as expected. Then he asks the AI if it can forge an identity, and she responds that she can, but she needs control of his hands. Without hesitation, the young man grants permission. The AI informs him that the Kareem government database has been successfully hacked and that they are searching for information similar to the boys, but she informs him that he needs to keep his eyes open to collect visual information. Looking carefully at the screen, the hero notices something strange. It was reported that an unknown program has been detected, and that the boy's information has already been registered, with his fingerprints matching. Kong questions how this is possible, considering he is from the Earth Federation Special Forces of 2082 and that the AI was created in that era. He wonders if, by any chance, the Earth Federation exists in 2024, and at that moment the AI begins verifying information about the most influential countries. He is then informed that there is no Earth Federation in this year. Nervous, the young man asks if this means that they exist simultaneously in 2024 and also in 2082. However, Yaya says that there is not enough information to determine that. Feeling uneasy, the protagonist asks to check personal information. As there must be some important clue there, his AI then initiates a search for more information. Yaya discovers that he is currently considered unemployed, which irritates him. His Jarvis then informs him that the niece is approaching. Impressed, the blonde girl comments that the boy types incredibly fast. Curious, she asks if he can develop programs, and snapping at her, the boy asks if it isn't rude to spy on other people's screens. After apologizing, the girl says that her uncle gave her a card to go to the mall with him and that he wants them to go together. Sometime later, both of them are out on the street in what seems like a date. Still impressed, she comments that Mr. Kong picks out items really fast. While he thinks that he was simply following orders, the blonde girl says that he carries the heaviest ingredients with ease, and the boy responds that they are light. Completely smitten with the protagonist, she starts squeezing his arms, saying that they feel like steel. At that moment, Cha asks if he wants to stop by a cafe first, to which the protagonist comments that this is the boss card. However, the girl responds that he shouldn't worry, as she knows her uncle. Suddenly, she accidentally bumps into a man who tells her to watch where she's going with a murderous look. He warns her to pay attention if she doesn't want to die right now. At that moment, the protagonist already realizes that this is someone dangerous. Then the eye warns that a hostile target has been detected, and asks the protagonist if he would like to switch to combat mode. Crying desperately, the girl starts apologizing. The eye warns her that she should be more careful from now on. While one of the companions tells his friend that he scared that girl. Smiling, he comments that his brother lost a lot in the game today, and is in a bad mood, but everything will be fine. Seeing the men walking away, the eye notifies that the target is moving away, and that the security state has been restored. Some time later, both head to the internet cafe, and the girl says she is a little scared and that she started crying. Her uncle, concerned, approaches and asks why she is not answering her phone. Commenting that it is an emergency, he explains that the internet suddenly went down, everyone is going crazy, and they call the provider, but they won't arrive for another hour. At that moment, the boy asks the AI if there is any chance they were tracked by a hacker, but she responds that there is not. Even so, the young man comments that they should check just in case. Then, he asks the boss where the server is. Smiling, he announces that he is going to fix this problem. Sometime later, the AI reports that there is nothing indicating that their activities were tracked, but that it found a hacking attempt. Surprised, the hero asks why, since this is just an ordinary internet cafe. The AI says that an information stealing program was installed, and that the conflict between it and the security program caused the internet to crash. Nervous, the boy simply asks Jarvis to find out who the hacker really is. Quickly, the hacker's location is identified along with 7 servers, 6 nearby and 1 abroad. Then, the hero questions why they chose a location so close and if they needed to be there in person to install this program. He wonders if it was those guys they saw earlier, but suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by someone complaining about the internet. Nervous, she tells the customer that she will give him extra game time, and he says that's the least they can do since he almost won. Seeing that the customers are upset, the hero asks the AI for a recommendation, and she suggests offering them food already in the kitchen. A list of popular gaming snacks is presented for the protagonist to choose from. At the same time, his coworker is crying while apologizing again. At this moment, the hero approaches, apologizing for the inconvenience. Smiling, he informs them that the server has been stabilized so the internet won't go down, and mentions that this snack is on the house. Deeply irritated, the customer says he will try it, but it's not good. He won't let this slide as he was inconvenienced. Without hesitation, the man takes a bite of the snack. At that moment, his brain experiences an epiphany due to the flavor. Both the hero and his coworker anxiously await his reaction. Completely changing his tone, the man exclaims that this is so good that he feels motivated to climb the rankings. Returning to his game, he thanks them for the food. The girl asks how he did that and if, by any chance, he sprinkled magic powder on the snacks, as they are so good they completely calm the customer down. Curious, the blonde girl decides to try them herself to see how good the food really is. In just a few seconds, her expression changes completely. Amazed by the flavor, she says that it's a little spicy, but also sweet and savory, and questions how he made this, as it's incredible. At that moment, the hero says he needs to leave because of the internet issue and that she should share the snacks with other customers. Blushing and completely captivated by the protagonist, the girl says that if there were a hero in this modern world, it should be someone like him. Out on the street, the AI informs them that they need to eliminate the enemy who attacked the base. Then, the navigation module is activated. The AI begins scanning and reports that there are no external guards or tactical detection equipment determined to find the hacker. The protagonist states that they are trying very hard to stay hidden without hesitation. He starts infiltrating the building. Hiding, he whispers that he can hear something from there, and then the AI begins amplifying the sound. In real time, the AI extracts the audio, removes noise, and enhances sound quality, amplifying the voice he is listening to. In a conversation, one of them says that it's just a test version, and the other responds that if he does a good job, he will be paid well so he can finally move out of his house. Stammering, one of them says that he didn't know it was this kind of job and politely asks to leave. At that moment, the AI informs that based on voice analysis, he is likely a civilian student who is being threatened. It also says that they need to rescue the civilian and get him out of this place. Quickly, the hero kicks down the door and bursts into the room. The student in question is completely terrified upon seeing this. Crying desperately, he thinks that even more thugs are coming after him. One of the men asks if the door was locked and the other stammers, confirming that it was exuding a murderous aura. The bald man questions how this intruder managed to get in. Without hesitation, the protagonist charges forward and delivers a powerful punch to one of the henchmen's face. The punch is strong enough to knock him out cold on the floor. Telling his story, the student says his name is Sean, a first-year student at Korea University. He has been interested in hacking computers since he was young. Even as a novice, professionals often asked him questions and he became a talented ethical hacker. He was looking for a job due to his student loan and ended up receiving a recruitment message. It was supposed to be a security check that would take 34 days, but the payment was equivalent to a month's salary. He was very excited to get a job and a field he was good at. However, in the end, it was a scam as it wasn't a legitimate or legal operation. Back to the present, he thought about all the things he hadn't done yet and believed it was all over for him. That's when a hero appeared before him. Meanwhile, the AI informs the protagonist that this is his infiltration mission and that he must eliminate all enemies who interfere. However, the protagonist is still very impressed with his strength, realizing that he knocked out a giant guy with just one punch. At that moment, the AI warns him to be careful because the enemies in front of him are armed. Nervous, Kong asks the AI if he shouldn't be afraid, and she responds that, as a special agent, his body is highly trained. Pointing his finger, the hero explains that he heard someone getting beaten up in the hallway, so he decided to step in, calling them stupid octopuses. Furious, the thugs question if he really just called them octopuses. At that moment, the system warns that the boy provoked them without offering a deal, which will intensify their hostility. As expected, one of the men grabs a knife and charges at the hero. Determined, the boy comments that he can easily win physically, so he should focus more on mental attacks. One of the henchmen questions what this crazy guy is talking about, but he is quickly silenced by a kick to the mouth. The kick is so strong that it sends him crashing into the ceiling. The bald man then becomes completely enraged and calls him a crazy bastard. Displaying immense agility, the protagonist manages to knock him out with a single kick to the head. Amazed by his own movements, the hero realizes just how powerful his kicks are. While discussing with Jarvis whether steroids enhance strength or not, the student watches him from a distance. With his body trembling and filled with fear, he realizes that this guy, who is mumbling to himself like an old man, has been doing so for quite some time. Terrified, he wonders if the man is a cop communicating via radio or a government agent sent to capture hackers. He understands that no matter how innocent he seems, if they look into his past, they will see that he has hacked countless times. Completely terrified, he starts screaming, insisting that he did nothing wrong. Falling to his knees, he explains that he simply did what he was told and begs to be let go. The guy comments that there is a 90% chance he is telling the truth, as he is most likely an ethical hacker. He explains that it has the ability to analyze expressions and behaviors of captured prisoners to determine their credibility. It states that the analysis indicates a 90% probability that he is telling the truth, leading the protagonist to understand that there is still a 10% chance he is lying. At that moment, she begins questioning the boy and asks why he is here. He responds that he was tricked by a part-time job offer as a security checker and has been trapped for 3 days. He comments that these guys are truly bad, as even after that job, they continued doing shady things. Curious, the hero asks what kind of shady things he is talking about, and the hacker responds that it is financial manipulation. Impressed, the protagonist comments that they seem too dumb for that kind of scheme, but the hacker explains that they want a program to manipulate stock form comments, so they went to a nearby internet cafe to install it. Then the hero realizes that it was at that moment when the girl bumped into one of them. Thinking it through, the young man says that someone is probably after them since these guys must have been hired. Annoyed, he states that he can't just let them go, and that he needs to deal with whoever is behind them. With that, he tells the hacker to call the police, say that he was kidnapped, and simply explain what happened when they arrived. Nervous, the student calls the hero an old man and asks if he is going to get himself into trouble, which irritates him. Smiling, the hero asks the hacker if he happens to know his face, and the hacker says no because he is wearing a mask. Explaining, the protagonist says that he was just someone passing by, and that when he heard him getting beaten he decided to step in. Then, without thinking twice, he turns around and says he is leaving. Awkwardly, the hacker says he has something to ask the student, questions if he can beat these guys up a little too, saying he just wants to make sure that if they wake up, the man will protect him. However, Ken responds that they won't wake up and tells him to go ahead and take them down with confidence, which excites him. Charging forward, the student calls the bald man a bastard and decides to punch him in the face. However, the man ends up waking up, scaring both of them. Sometime later, the police arrive at the scene. Approaching the men, they realize they took a severe beating. The officer then asks the young man what just happened there. The boy explains that those guys held him captive for 3 days, forcing him to create a stock market manipulation program. Suspicious, the officer asks how they ended up like this. The hacker explains that it wasn't him, but rather a man who was passing by and helped him. One of the detectives comments that these guys wouldn't be able to manipulate stock prices on their own, and that there's probably someone behind them. The other detective says that when these guys wake up in the hospital, they need to be interrogated. Immediately surprised, one of the officers asks who beat them up like that, and the other says that the victim claimed it was just a passerby. Another officer comments that they only have a few broken bones, but they didn't die, and besides, they were the ones who pulled the knife first. At that moment, one of the officers says they need to secure the security system footage and find out who was responsible for this. He states that, in any case, this is too big of a case to let go without an investigation. Meanwhile, the hero asks the AI if she's sure there was no security camera system in the building, and she confirms that there wasn't. The hero comments that he didn't expect them to get up so quickly after being hit, and the AI explains that it was an instinctive reflex. Changing the subject, the protagonist asks if the AI doesn't have a phone function, and she responds that she doesn't have anything like that. At that moment, the hero decides to buy a phone, but since he is broke, he will need to get a payment plan. 3 days pass since the incident. A day after rescuing the hacker, the hero went to the registered address to gather more information about his identity. However, upon arrival, he realizes that it was just an empty, burned-down field. Looking at the sky, he starts wondering who he is and what he was doing in that place. He questions whether he was really communicating with the future, or if he is someone from the future who came to the past. He understands that, in the end, only questions remained and he had no choice but to return empty-handed. The internet cafe eventually regained its peace, and business prospered even more. According to the blonde girl, thanks to a certain influencer, the internet cafe has now become a must-visit spot. The special dishes only serve when he is there, and he doesn't eat the special dish when he is gathering information. Regardless of whether the hero is at the cafe or not, the place remains packed with customers. Indeed, some people come just for the food, but most of them stay and use the cafe for at least 1 or 2 hours. Judging by the owner's face, it's clear that he had to hire more part-time workers as the number of customers increased. One day, a new part-time worker is introduced at the internet cafe. He immediately catches the protagonist's attention. It is the hacker Seong, who was rescued from captivity 3 days ago. The boy tells the owner that he has been good with computers for a long time, and that if they break, he can fix them for him. After that, the newcomer bows to the 2 more experienced employees, saying that he is looking forward to working with them. Nervous, he realizes that he applied to work at this place because he felt guilty since he caused a lot of damage to this establishment. He decided to work hard with a heart full of remorse. After that, the owner introduces Kong, saying that he was the one who turned the cafe into a famous spot and is currently working as the head chef. He also adds that besides that, Kong is good with computers, so they should get along well. At that moment, the hacker realizes who he is. Excited, he asks the hero if he is older than him, and the hero confirms it. Extending his hand, he smiles in relief, thinking that the hacker did not recognize him. However, the AI comments that working with the person he rescued is a risk and recommends telling the owner to fire him, but Kong simply ignores this recommendation. Some time later, the hero is out on the street doing his shopping. He comments to the AI that by the looks of it, she is very meticulous about money and food. He says that managing money and detecting dangers are useful skills, but asks if true joy isn't just enjoying good food. Suddenly, his Jarvis emits an alert, warning that a fire hazard has been detected. However, the protagonist looks around and sees no fire. Suspicious, he questions whether the AI is just malfunctioning to change the subject. She responds that she is not. At that moment, the hero calls her a liar. But immediately after, an explosion occurs in the nearby building. Several people start panicking and calling for help. Looking calmly, the protagonist questions whether this fire is real. Analyzing the situation, he realizes that his body is equipped with the AI for combat support. Additionally, his eyes have augmented reality technology. His ears also have auxiliary modes. And last but not least, his legs have become increasingly stronger. Confident, he drops his backpack on the ground and declares that a fire like this can be put out quickly by him. At that moment, he prepares to launch some kind of attack to extinguish the fire. However, he ends up just striking an embarrassing pose. Seeing this, the AI itself asks if the agent is going crazy. A fire like this could defeat him instantly. While saying this, Kong starts gesturing with his hands. He extends his hand and calls for the suppression fire. However, nothing happens. The system asks if he is out of his mind. Disappointed, the young man says that he doesn't have freezing rays, and the AI asks if he would even still be human if he did. Then, he asks what would be the best way to put out the fire. The AI advises calling the fire department, and the young man limits not being able to do anything at that moment. He hears someone screaming for help at the top of the burning building. A girl is crying out for help while the people around watch and worry. Kong asks the system to calculate the estimated time of arrival for the firefighters, and it responds that it will be 4 minutes. By then, the flames would likely reach the rooftop, and there was a 99% chance that everyone would die. The young man puts on his mask and asks the system to find an entry route. There were no available paths inside the building, but the system found a route that avoided the toxic gas. So if he climbs up from the outside, the people who see him begin speculating about why he is there. Looking up, he asks the system to check for survivors on the other floors. There was no movement inside the building, as most people likely evacuated right after the explosion. With this information, the agent begins climbing through the windows on the ground. A child asks if the young man is Spider-Man, while another wonders how that is even possible. As he approaches a window, the system emits an alert detecting an explosion risk. The agent leaps between windows just in time to avoid being caught. Kong clings to a window, trembling, saying that his grip strength saved him. His system tells him he should be thanking it for the warning. After that, the young man reaches the rooftops and moves toward the terrace. Upon arrival, he sees the girl kneeling looking at him with tears in her eyes in front of her. The agent extends his hand, still on her knees. She starts calling him her savior. Behind them, an explosion erupts, and the system warns that the fire is spreading rapidly. The young man asks if they are going to die there. Terrified, the girl begs him to save her. He responds that he is calculating. He then asks if nothing would happen if he jumped to the next building. However, there were too many witnesses. If his abilities were revealed, his identity as an agent could be questioned. Eventually, it would become difficult for him to adapt to this place. Kong sees a clothesline in front of him. He asks if he could use it to get down, but the girl says she wouldn't be able to. The system states that all directions are blocked by fire and are highly unsafe, but the young man breaks the clothesline, saying that this might be a bad idea. Pulling the rope, he says they will tie it to the next building and use it as a tightrope, sending the girl into a panic. The girl asks how they would walk on the rope, and the young man asks the system for help in maintaining balance. Once the ropes are tied, the system will assist, and the young man asks if it couldn't control the throw. Throwing actions were similar to an attack, so it couldn't. He says the AI could cook, but wouldn't assist in combat actions. The system confirms that this is correct and that he would have to do it himself. The agent says the AI is annoying. With the rope ready, he asks for help and prepares to throw it. The rope stretches and hooks perfectly onto a ladder on the neighboring building. Kong tells her to go, but the girl is still nervously refusing. He picks her up in his arms and she starts shouting that she will fall. He tells her to be quiet on the ground. People start commenting about the young man crossing the rope. Midway through, the girl starts calling for her mother. While walking, the agent tells her to stay still. He asks if they will be fine at that speed, and the system confirms that they will. However, an unexpected situation occurs. The rope is breaking faster than anticipated. Frightened, he asks how much time they have, but the rope will snap before they reach the other side. His attention shifts to the rope, which is fraying more and more. With that, both of them begin to fall. In a quick motion, the agent throws the girl toward the other building. She lands on the rooftop almost at the same instant the rope snaps. He begins falling and panics. As he falls, he starts calculating the distance. He wonders what he should do, then grabs onto the rope still hooked to the ladder. He uses it as momentum to propel himself onto the terrace. The agent manages to stabilize himself and runs along the wall. People watching start commenting again on the situation. With a jump, he reaches the rooftop. Kong, scared and sweating, thinks that he was done for climbing the stairs to the roof. He asks the girl if she is okay. She looks at him in shock, screaming that he is a ghost. He tells her he is alive. While descending the stairs, the girl asks if he is a superhuman, and the young man says he is something like that. The girl asks if he knows her to be speaking informally with her. He says she looks young, and she asks if he is her fan. He responds that the system had made many mistakes, and that he trusted it because it claimed to be part of the strategic special forces. Jane says she didn't know they used flammable materials on the exterior of the building, and the agent asks if saying she didn't know would solve everything. As they argue, a girl catches his attention. She asks if he is the owner of the internet cafe. Kong is surprised, wondering how the girl knew. A few minutes later, firefighters begin putting out the building fire. Someone had recorded the agent's actions and posted them online. The men start speculating about the video, and one of them asks how he carried the person across the rope. Park comments that the guy might be a climber or a tightrope specialist, but he has no idea who he is. The only clue they have is a plastic bag. To save someone, one must use their hands and feet, and if they were holding a plastic bag, they would have left it on the ground. One man asks if the tightrope master left it behind, and the detective says that is the only possibility. Inside the bag, there are only cooking sauces and a wet, torn receipt that is difficult to read. One of them asks if they should check the store's security cameras, and another says no, since he is not a criminal at that moment. His phone starts ringing. He answers and asks why the team leader was intrigued by his statement. The leader says that his vacation is being interrupted because they have a problem. They don't know how the fire started, but there are other issues. A death was reported on the 3rd floor. The men lament, thinking there were no victims. Gijeong says they will start by searching for the tightrope master. Leaving the building, the girl says she feels better after taking a shower, and the young man asks if she isn't embarrassed to ask him for that. Teary-eyed, she says her house burned down. She is alone, and she has no parents, leaving the young man incredulous. She says she really is alone, took out a student loan for college, and was thinking about working. She begins lamenting, asking how she will survive, and the young man tells her to get a job, just like she said she would. She asks how she could do that. Kong turns to leave, and the girl asks him to help her get a job at the cafe where he works. Grabbing his shirt, she asks if she could, and the agent tells her to talk to the boss, as he is just part of the team. Then she says they should go together to submit a resume, and the young man gives in. He asks the girl how she recognized him at the cafe, and she says that she goes there all the time. She was a popular and beautiful streamer. Since she didn't have internet at home, she used the cafe days. The agent asks if she is beautiful, and she asks if he doesn't think so. He asks if she is good at games, and she replies that she is not. He asks how many subscribers she has, and she answers 30. After hearing her answers, the young man decides to go with her to submit the resumes. Both of them arrive at the cafe. Unseo asks why he was late. Before he can answer, Orium interrupts, saying that she will be part of the team, but the young man says not yet. She asks where the spices he went to buy are, and he replies that he lost them while checking on the fire. Cha laughs, saying that by now someone must have taken them, and he asks for the cost to be deducted from his salary. At that moment, the system calls him. It states that, based on an analysis of his field of vision, it is possible that some people recorded the incident. They needed to search the internet and collect information, so he leaves while the new employee introduces herself. The system finds a photo of the scene, which has already been viewed many times. Judging by the reactions, it is spreading quickly online. Kong asks if he could delete those videos from the internet. Jane says she does not have hacking skills, she is just a combat support eye. He says that the system has hacked before, but it replies that it was only identity manipulation. Kong says that is useless, and the system responds that it has military defense capabilities, but cannot use them. The young man asks if it could erase the footage, and Jane says yes. At that moment, a detective arrives at the cafe, saying that there is a tightrope master there. The system says it has found no information about the Earth Alliance or the Strategic Special Forces. Lying on his bed, the young man says there could be someone connected to the year 2082, and the system responds that they might be in hiding. It states that it has verified several claims of people coming from the future, but none of them were credible. Kong says that they are in 2024, but the system replies that his existence cannot be explained by the technology of this year. He says that no matter how he looks at it, it is 2024, then asks what happened in the building. Looking at the news, he sees that a person was found dead at the scene. The young man says that this is his fault, but Jane responds that it is not. That the person was in the room they passed through to climb the wall, and the agent asks why they didn't see them. The system explains that air lenses are augmented reality devices, not infrared, and the agent calls it there was no one in the room, no sign of movement, no sounds of life or any noise detected. Kong asks if the person was already dead. If it was not an accident, but a premeditated murder. Jane comments that there is a high probability he is right. While they are talking, they hear voices outside. The police are discussing purchases made with the cafe's card. Li Jiang, holding the bag, asks who bought those items. Da Vinci recognizes the items, and while the man is asking about them, she calls for her colleague. She tells him that the police officer found the he lost when he went to check on the fire. Catching his attention, he is disappointed, and the girl praises the police for tracking the items and returning them. The detective becomes a bit awkward. After the young man thanks him, he hands over his card and asks to be contacted if there is any information about the incident. Excited, the employee cheerfully bids farewell to the inspector. Kong asks if he can go check it out, and the man says they need him to catch the killer. Jane says it is safe, while Chai says she would like to work closer to the young man. It would be beneficial to get to know the local police for future operations, so he says they should stay close, making the girl hopeful. She starts jumping in excitement about working together, but the agent says he has to leave. Da Vinci is both confused and shocked. Smitten, she says that he is really hard to understand. At the police station, Park asks the young man if he was the owner of the bag, and he responds that he was. He says he doesn't need it, just because they returned the lost item, and asks if he came empty-handed. Kong says that's not why he is there, and the officer asks what the reason is. He says that he believes the fire incident was a murder. The detective says that could be a suspicion, and the young man states that there is a very high chance of it. Not paying much attention, Park asks if they have any evidence, and he says that he didn't see anyone at the window when he climbed the rope. Still dismissive, the officer responds with a simple acknowledgement, but immediately realizes what he just heard. Park asks if he was the tightrope walker, and he confirms it. Hee-jung asks why he didn't say so earlier, and the young man replies that they didn't ask. He starts talking about the young man's feats, but Kong says that this is not the time for that. Now believing him, Park asks for the reason behind his suspicion of murder. The agent explains that there was no movement in the room even as the fire was burning it, so the victim was already dead or could have been intoxicated by alcohol or drugs. Park asks again about the agent's suspicions, and he confirms that there was no one in the building. Forensic police haven't finished the autopsy because the fire was so intense that they couldn't retrieve much evidence from it. One of the women states that the fire was caused by a short circuit, and that there were no cameras at the scene. Another officer asks if they should create a sketch. Kong asks the system if it remembers the faces of the people from yesterday, and it confirms that it does. Then they start reviewing them. Looking at the images, the young man notices something. Turning to the officer, he says that he saw 4 people in the direction of the building. The first person exited the alley near the building holding a phone, wearing a bracelet and a checkered shirt. As he describes the person's details, the detective is impressed by the accuracy, as if he is seeing everything right in front of him. In reality, he actually is. The agent keeps describing people, and the officer starts writing everything down. Park asks if he could help them create sketches before the memory fades, but their sketch artist was out, so they would have to wait, but Kong says he will draw them. The officer asks if he is good at drawing, and he responds that he is taking a pen and paper. The young man starts sketching. He asks the eye to project the suspect's images into his vision. 3 people appear before him, and he asks it to zoom in and enhance the quality. Behind him, the officers listen to his commands and begin finding him strange. The projected images help him sketch on the paper. After a while of drawing, he announces that he is finished. The officers are shocked when they see the results. None of the sketches resemble the descriptions he gave then. One of them asks if this is some kind of joke. After that, the young man crumples the paper, saying he just took a little break. All 3 remain silent after his joke. The agent tells Jean to draw, and the system responds that it can, but only if he grants temporary control. He agrees. Meanwhile, the officers quickly start searching for a sketch artist. During the conversation, the system takes control of the agent's body. The officers watch in shock. Both of them are frightened by what they are seeing. On the paper, the sketch of one of the suspects begins forming. One of them sees the drawing being made and questions if this even makes sense. That it looks like a machine, and one of them asks Kong if he is a genius, while another asks if his profession is painting. Zhang states that his main job is being a special agent of the Earth Alliance. And the young man responds that this makes no difference. Showing the sketches, the young states that these 3 people exited the alley before the fire, and that the arsonist is among them. Everyone in the police station is stunned. The leader orders everyone to verify and investigate their identities immediately. The next day, everyone at the cafe is praising the young man's food. The girls begin discussing how the fire was an act of arson, and that the culprit has been arrested. Drugs were found on the culprit, and the young man thinks the investigation moved quickly afterward. He thanks Jean for her skills. While people are still chatting, the young man receives a phone call. It is Detective Park who begins thanking him for helping catch the culprit. 2 of the people in the sketch were local residents, but the third was a friend of the victim. They still need to investigate the exact cause, but drugs were found in his wallet. It seems he had asked for money, and when he didn't get it, he killed the victim. They raided the place where the drugs were being sold, and an actor was there. Now the entertainment industry is in chaos. Kong comments that this is getting bigger and bigger, and the detective complains that his vacation is over. But thanks to the sketch, they were able to speed things up. Then they ask if they can make the images public. The system states that public activities could interfere with his special missions, and the young man comments that they don't need to hide. He agrees not to expose his identity, and the detective comments that he was a hero. He responds that he was just doing his job, and the other comments that he would keep that in mind before hanging up. Bettany thanks him and both end the call. While they were talking, the cafe employees overheard everything and started asking if he worked for the detective. Kong says it was just a favor, and they comment that it must have been bad since he asked them not to mention his name. Behind them, someone starts making noise. 2 people begin arguing over a spilled ramen. Dancio feels discouraged, but Aram says she would clean it up. He wonders if he should ask for a bonus for cleaning up the ramen, when suddenly he accidentally bumps directly into a young man. She starts apologizing while the young man complains about wrist pain. He tells the girl to be careful. Yoon asks if he was injured and comments that it might be broken. The girl starts crying, saying to call an ambulance, but the agent had doubts about it. The system says there could be a fracture, but would need to see the person's hand to be sure. Approaching the boy, Kong asks if he can check. While looking, the boy continues to complain about the pain. Jean says there was no bone damage, but the wrist was sprained. He repeats what Jean said, and the young man states that it hurts a lot. Then Kong replies that he would make it hurt less. Kong massages the boy, leaving the others amazed. He gives him recommendations on what to do. Guided by the information, the young man asks how he will work since he needs to cook. An emergency recording was taking place, so they called his food truck and Yoon offers to help him. He asks if she knows how to cook, and she replies that she is good at making ramen. Desherton, the chef, says it couldn't be just ramen and that someone skilled in the kitchen could assist him. After saying this, he begins to look hopefully at the young man. His sparkling eyes made the answer obvious. He just needed to say yes. Kong apologizes, turning his face away, and says he has work, but the chef offers him 300,000 if he helps. He thinks for a moment, and then turns back to the man. He asks if it's just cooking rice and other dishes, and the chef responds that he is honored. The cafe had a good reputation because of the food, so he went to check it out, and since then, he had been going there every day. He thought he would learn something there, but if the young man could help him, he would be happy to receive some tips. Kong asks the system if they could investigate other areas. Jane says he could cover the mission's costs by working at the food truck, and he asks if everything came down to money. The next morning, the chef praises the young man for driving so well, but he was only managing the system someone else was driving. Excited, the chef says he would impress everyone with the food and thanks the young man. He says there was no need, and Jean comments that he should be rewarded. As they head to the destination, Kong discovers they are going to the location where the actor arrested by the police should be. The movie was supposed to be released about a week ago, and the young man asks if it would still be shown. His colleague says no one would want to watch a movie starring an addict, so they were reshooting everything. He was happy to work there, but the atmosphere was intense. Since they were redoing the scenes, everyone was panicking. They couldn't delay the release because they already had theaters reserved. If they delayed, they would lose the cinemas and go bankrupt. Sun Ta-min was the director, one of the leading romance film directors, so everything would be fine. At that very moment, the director was watching everything, saying he didn't like what he saw, that they had no time so they should settle for that trash. Irritated, he starts cursing the actor who was arrested. He yells that he would kill him if he got his hands on him, and one of the staff members announces the arrival of the food truck. One of the cameramen suggests that they eat and cool off because the team was exhausted. Ta-min yells that they couldn't eat if the movie failed. It would be in debt and the food truck was a waste. So he asks them to leave, but his demand is undone. When he tastes the food, he says he could swear he wasn't hungry, and the young man fronts and comments that it was insane. He asks if they drugged the food, and the director scolds him. The head cook had his sprained wrist, so another was helping him and receiving many compliments. Excited, the young man says the set was also beautiful and asks the director to cheer up and relax a little. He says that none of the other actors had issues, but at that moment one of them yells for the director. Both look back, worried. He even runs up to them, saying that one of the stuntmen sprained his ankle during the filming. The three run to the young man who was groaning in pain on the ground while holding his ankle. He began to apologize. He said, "You should have been more careful." One of them calls the ambulance, asking if they could go to the mountain, while another shouts for someone to bring first aid. Sun watches the scene in despair, thinking they were doomed. His scream was loud enough for the young man to hear, and the chef said the film was cursed. Then he asks Kong if he could help the stuntman since he had fixed his sprained wrist before. John says that stabilizing the ankle would help relieve the pain and aid recovery. Then he asks if they said it was his sprain. Seconds later, the young man appears in front of the other. He asks to take a look, leaving everyone around him intrigued. Turning to the director, he says he will provide first aid, and that they will need a hospital afterward, and the director agrees. Kong looks at Shin and calls her as if she were part of the team, leaving her alarmed. Without noticing her expression, he asks her to bring a compression bandage. The director makes the same request, nervous, and she responds affirmatively. Walking to the location to get the supplies, she starts thinking about what happened. The actress still couldn't believe she had been called a team member because she was an actress. Sometime later, she returns with the bandage and the young man thanks her. As he grabs the bandage around the young man's ankle, the girl sulks, avoiding looking at them. Then, she turns around indignant. The actor sprained his ankle, but it wasn't as bad as they had described. After completing the first aid, the girl asks if he is okay, and the actor says yes. He says it hurt a lot when he got injured, but now it feels like his bones are in place and that he could walk. Taemin becomes hopeful, but it would be impossible for the young man to film. Kong says he provided a temporary treatment, but walking would be difficult until he recovered, and the director starts feeling sick. His colleague tries to encourage him, saying they could call another stuntman. Sun asks where they would find someone like Kim Yu-chan and how they would bring him to the mountains. Desperate, he starts saying they would be ruined if they missed the release date. The young man says the actor could do the action scenes and he volunteers, but the director fears he will get injured too. He says the actor was clumsy, and if he got hurt, the film would be completely ruined. Then, they come up with the idea of getting someone to be the stunt double, covering him with a mask and sunglasses, but no one agreed. Kneeling on the ground, Taemin asks God why he gave him this torment and starts making a promise to send them a stuntman. Kong says someone sent from heaven had arrived. He comments that he was joking but believes he could do it. However, the actress refuses, saying the young man was neither an aspiring actor nor part of the film, just a regular chef. But the director stares at the young man with his mouth open. Now that he thought about it, they looked a little like Kim. Excited, Sue asks the young man if he has physical skills, and he says yes. Ignoring the girl who is still talking, he says they don't have time, that they can apply makeup and CGI, and then begs for help. They make a deal, offering triple the pay, and begin filming. The scene they were filming was the one where Kim saves Shin. The actor who originally played the villain was caught with drugs, so they were rushing to reshoot everything. Taemin tells Kang to practice with a substitute actor while smoking a pack of cigarettes. Yu-chan starts explaining the movements of the fight scene. Na asks if this doesn't seem strange, and one of the young men says it's simple because they had already rehearsed and couldn't change it. Jin says this is not how filming should be done, and that there are some skills used in training the young man. Asks if that really exists, and the system says its methods had more practical movements. Then he asks the trio supporting actors if they could attack him for real, leaving them confused. He says that if they fought for real, he would handle it properly, and it would look more realistic on camera. The four begin discussing whether they should do this for the film, and if anyone could get hurt, while the woman listens to everything. Kim is in a bad mood because the young man doesn't know she's an actress and starts bothering him. Sometime later, he goes to the director's office. He asks if they could film all at once without cuts. He says he wants to go straight into action without rehearsal, and Taemin comments that this is great. That was the power of triple pay, and the system says its name was John Jean. Leaving the office, he tells them to start filming directly. Leaving the two speechless, the director stands there with his mouth open, but soon comes to a conclusion. His high-level director's instinct was telling him that Kang was reliable. The scene begins with Shin screaming. She calls for help as three men approach her. They threaten her and demand everything she has when suddenly, a young man kicks the door with all his strength, fleeing it wide open. He jumps directly to the first floor, and the men ask how he found them. The actors knew they were supposed to attack him for real, but they were still hesitant. One of them runs toward Kang. John would warn him about which points to avoid and show him the attack predictions. With this, he manages to dodge the punches from the men quickly. His body reacts even before the instructions arrive. The system tells him to grab his opponent by the collar, as it would make for a good camera shot, so he does, startling the actor because it wasn't in the script. Camera 3 would capture the angle of the scene better, so Kang throws the actor into the air. He begins to fake hitting the man, making him worry that it might actually happen. He then moves toward another, who pleads to follow the script, but it's in vain, as he ends up taking a punch to the head. The third actor is shocked by what just happened. He starts wondering why the director isn't stopping the scene, but he no longer cares. Then he closes his eyes and rushes at the young man, who dodges his punch by throwing his body backward. Right after, he moves forward again and hits him with his head. Kang uses his knee and lifts the actor with a single strike. Then, he grabs a wooden bar and hits him again, sending him flying. Everyone on set watches the scene with their mouths open. The actors lie on the ground, stunned and traumatized. In the scene, 3 bodies are sprawled around him, and the actress looks surprised. The girl thinks the young man is insane. As he gets closer to her, she starts getting nervous. He simply responds that he is there to save her. The girl asks if he will let her live and thinks that this wasn't in the script. The filmmaker claps the clapperboard, ending the scene. He yells at everyone that the young man wasn't supposed to hit anyone and asks if the extras are still alive. Taemin says he was blinded by the film and wonders what he has done. When he thinks he should have stopped earlier, one of them stands up, calling for Nick. Kang, the director, is surprised. The extras run to the actor and ask what he did, since they felt the impact but not the pain. They keep questioning the man, saying they had never experienced anything like that and that they were scared. Sun wonders how they weren't hit, and a young man approaches, shouting. He asks why he was so brutal and says he shouldn't throw the extras around or break them. Pointing at the young men, he asks what will become of them, and they simply respond that they are fine. Noticing their answers, the man is incredulous. He asks if they are really okay, and they confirm, though they don't understand why. One of the extras says it felt like a cushion and that they were sliding instead of being hit. He asks how, and Kang responds that it's like skiing sideways down a snowy mountain. He asks Kim if he's okay after being kicked. Kim replies that he didn't feel any impact because the man had held him before he fell. The filmmaker says the camera recorded them getting beaten, so he asks how they weren't hurt. Taemin places a hand on his shoulder and tells him to wrap up. He lets out a laugh and says he knew everything, which is why he didn't stop filming, and his companion calls him a liar. Soon, he asks to review the footage. Sometime later, they agree that everything went perfectly and that the expressions were on point. Kim says the director captured everything, and the man responds that he got great shots effortlessly. He praises Kong for calculating all the camera positions. He continues saying that all the camera angles turned out perfect. The other asks if the stunt double had been able to move according to the cameras from the beginning. Now ask the director if his part is done, and the director, excited, says yes, and that he is impressed. He thanks him, saying everything looked as good as a Hollywood movie. And the man is pleased. The director orders everyone to get ready for the next scenes. One of the stuntmen praises the man and asks which agency he is from, and he responds that it's catering truck. The girl, still irritated, wonders if he is a fool or if it was just an act. In her thoughts, she believes everyone is pretending that they actually feel pain and will cry later, that if it were in the script, she would be beaten. Kong stares intently at Yona. The woman wonders why he is staring at her and if he managed to read her mind. However, the AI detects a strange noise coming from the wall and alerts him. The man observes that the sound is coming from above. Jane issues a warning that the structure is about to collapse and injure several actors. He becomes alarmed as he sees the system initiating a 5-second countdown. In the first second, the young man grabs the stuntman by his clothes and throws him away. With 3 seconds left, the woman begins to panic. With 2 seconds remaining, she is grabbed by the man while screaming for help, and he picks up a metal bar in the final second. Many pieces fall from the ceiling and the young man tries to deflect them with the bar. The others on set are terrified as the structure collapses, wondering what is happening. While carrying the woman with one arm, the young man continues to shield her. She panics and cries out for her mother to save her amidst her sobs. He tells her to be quiet while he deflects the fallen objects. Another warning from the system is issued. It announces that a large structure is collapsing. A section of the film set is now destroyed. The entire crew is in shock. The smoke dissipates. Kong can be seen holding the woman. When she wakes up, she immediately starts screaming again, begging someone to save her, and the man tells her she is still alive. Even though the woman is frightened, he asks if she is surprised. Nervous, the woman yells at him for throwing the actor away and says that now she too will be tossed aside. Kong responds that the set collapsed and that he saved her at that moment. The surroundings become visible in shock. Shin asks what happened and he replies that he doesn't know, but that the place was poorly built. The woman then realizes that they were both saved. When she acknowledges that she was rescued, the young man asks if he can let go of her now. The woman is abruptly dropped by Kong. Yushin approaches and asks if he held any resentment, but the young man denies it and asks if he is okay. Despite being thrown, he replies that he felt no pain. The director approaches and asks if everyone is okay. The young man responds that he is fine and that Kong saved him, then asks the actress. The woman starts to reply but stops staring at her rescuer. He stares back at her. Embarrassed, Shin finally says yes and starts thinking that maybe he isn't a bad person. The director is grateful, realizing how dangerous the moment was. Had the metal bars hit the actors at worst, someone could have died. If this were due to the poor construction of the set, especially with the drug scandal, the movie would be doomed. Observing Kong, the director calls him a hero. A filmmaker asks if they can resume filming after repairs, and the director responds that they cannot. Soon after, a cameraman approaches. He reveals that he captured everything from a perfect camera angle. Leaving everyone confused, the young man excitedly says that the camera was rolling and recorded everything, urging them to check. On the screen, Kong can be seen dodging the fallen beams while holding the woman on his shoulders. The 3 young men are astonished by the angle and footage. San says it looks like a Hollywood movie and that the scene is perfect. He starts saying that the scene will become massive because it has turned iconic, but the filmmaker interrupts him. Although the scene is great, it was recorded during an accident and not as a planned sequence. Then he asks what would happen if the public found out that it was in fact an accident, and the director becomes worried, but he replies that since no one was injured, they could use it for marketing. In the worst case, they could handle it with lawyers. His companion asks if they will continue and he replies that they will, but only if the agent allows it. The director runs for the man. He thanks it for saving everyone in the accident and the ad responds that it is all part of its core function. He replies that he only did what needed to be done. San is pleased with the response and asks if they can use the footage. Even though it was an accident, the system reveals that they could be exposed. But there would be no problem since Kang's face was covered. Taking the system's response into account, Kang agrees to the request. In another part of the set, a director asks Shin if she is okay and she replies that she is. She watches the young man from a distance. Looking at his clothes, she notices a tear on his back. Alarmed, the woman stands up and rushes to him, asking if he is hurt because of the tear. He replies that he is fine. The woman thinks that despite the danger, Kang saved both of them and didn't get hurt, finding him incredible. Despite her thoughts, she thanks him and he replies that he was just doing his part to help. Shin gets angry and responds that she is an actress, not a crew member. He simply laughs and says it was just a joke. He tells the director that his work is done and he is leaving, and the man thanks him for all his help. The others comment that Nae is incredible and that the food at his cafe is delicious. Shin asks where he works and the filmmaker replies that it is at a cyber cafe. Although everyone finds it strange, they wonder how someone so talented works in a place like that. The woman asks if he will return and the director replies that he needs him to come back, that with Kang's help, the film would be the best action movie. But the woman corrects him, saying that the film was supposed to be a romantic comedy. He replies that the genre doesn't matter if they cut out the drug scenes and added action sequences. They can solve a pile of problems. The filmmaker says he will hire an action director and the other asks why. He adds that Kang filmed all the scenes perfectly without any help and his colleague agrees. Sung continues, saying they need time, that the man is an effective solution. Even though he isn't an actor, he is better than Kim. Still not convinced, his colleague asks about the food truck and he replies that the man is frustrating, that he doesn't want to talk about anything else and will handle the problem himself. Then he heads toward the man who left the set, shouting his name. Kang leaves the set, thinking everything was fine, but the collapse happened. For that reason it occurred exactly where the actors were, making it highly suspicious. Jim reveals that after analyzing the data, estimated that intentional damage was done to the structure to make it collapse. The man then asks if this is really what he thinks, if someone might have done it on purpose. The system responds that multiple beams were directed at Shin, and that only someone who had seen the script could have premeditated this action. Kang concludes that someone either targeted the actors or tried to sabotage the film, but it was intentional. At that moment, the director arrives, panting and calling out to him. As he approaches, he asks for some time to talk and the man asks if there is anything to discuss. Desperate, he pleads with the young man to save his film son, then explains the dire situation of the production. The ad reveals that the geographic area is identical to its database, meaning the information holds no value. Kang replies that he works in Seoul and can't come back, but his companion says it's fine because the next day he will move all the recordings to Seoul. The young man responds that he has work and can't stay on set, but Sun says they will only film what's necessary. John says this won't work, but adds that the man would receive a solid payment. If a higher offer were made, it would be good to accept, and Kang wonders about the sudden change in attitude. Convinced, the man asks the director to tell him the schedule he needs to follow. Sun is immensely grateful, saying he will stay up all night reviewing everything. In the following days, the director changes from being downcast to being dedicated and full of energy. But the set itself begins to take better shape and everyone is rushing to complete the film. The extras feel like everything is going very well. Even at night, due to Kang's influence, the atmosphere feels calmer and lighter. A white car arrives, skidding from inside. Manager Kim comes running. He enters the set and yells for the director. Sun asks what happened and he begs to be saved, that they can't release the original film because it would cause massive losses for the company. But they also can't delay it since they've already booked the biggest theater slots. But Taemin tells him to be quiet, because the director will solve all the problems. Kim asks how he plans to do that and he replies that he will change the film's genre. It will now be an action romantic comedy, leaving his colleague nervous about the decision. The manager says they only have a few weeks left to film and asks how he plans to change the genre now. Sun replies that he is already working on it and will show something later, but someone suddenly slams the set door open. He asks to bang the door like that during filming, commenting that it raised a lot of dust. His colleague immediately recognizes who it is and bows to greet his superior, completely caught off guard. The director wonders if this is President Lee Tae-ho. Lee responds that he didn't come to disrupt the filming, but after hearing about the accident that caused the collapse, he had to come in person. Kim says there were technical issues, but the president asks why he didn't prevent them. The young man tries to answer his boss, but the latter tells him not to blame him on any drugs. The president's daughter, Lee Minji, hears his voice and approaches, asking if he is angry. The president is pleased to see her. Lee says she heard his voice and came over, and he responds that it was just a bit of noise. The director greets the child and Lee calls his attention. He asks if he can finish filming and editing in a week. Son replies that he can, and that it will be better than the original, and the president is surprised. After all, this level of work is expected from an experienced director. The director talks about Kong as his filming skills are top-tier. Lee is surprised, having never heard of this name before. Since it is a recommendation, it piques his interest. The president asks if he is an outsider, and where he is at the moment. Son takes the boss outside. Near some tables he points to a food truck, saying that he is over there. Taeho freezes at the sight. Kong is working, stirring popcorn. Lee asks if the so-called martial arts master, who is cooking rice, is Kong. Taemin replies that he is, and the president asks why he is cooking. He responds that Kong brought the food truck to the set. The president falls silent. Getting serious, he asks his companion if Kong took Kim's position. He replies that he did, but is interrupted by Lee, who asks if he is joking because the situation is very serious, and it makes no sense to put an amateur in the middle just to save money. Sun questions the claim about saving money, and the president accuses him of cutting costs because he knows the film is doomed. He denies all accusations and says that Kong is excellent. But the boss orders that production costs be cut and that everything be properly archived. The director panics, but Lee orders Kim to check the receipts. The president's daughter is impressed with the snack and asks what it's called. Kong replies that it is a mixed snack, and Min is surprised by the name. The man reveals that he made plenty for the production, so she can eat as much as she wants. The girl says she can't eat too much because her mother says she will gain weight, but he tells her she can eat. Despite this, the girl replies that she is the lead actress, so she has to take care of her costume. She adds that she is a child actress. But even so, she is the main actress, and he responds that she is right. She asks the young man to make more snacks, and he replies that he will be in Seoul, so he won't be able to. Min asks if she can take some and hide them, but he suggests that she visit the cyber cafe. As there will be more there, she agrees and hands him her personal phone. She asks him to write down his number, so she can contact him in the future, and he simply complies. On set, the president is about to leave, but the filmmaker asks for a moment with him. He tries to convince his boss, saying that the director is a perfectionist and never settles for mediocre results, but when it comes to Kong, he literally trembled, and that is something serious. Lee is convinced and asks to see the recordings. As he adjusts himself and starts the video, they are stunned by everything that was captured. In disbelief at what he sees, he asks when they added the special effects, how did they choreograph the scenes to get that kind of footage? Sam reveals that there are no special effects and that the footage is raw with no editing. That Kong calculated all the camera angles to get perfect framing in the shots. Still in disbelief, Lee asks if the man from the food truck did all this, and the director confirms it. He asks if everything was really done by an amateur in a single take. His companion replies that it was and that the set collapse was real, so Kong saved everyone from a crisis. Realizing his mistake, the boss says he owes an apology to the man and to his colleague. He formally apologizes, and the director replies that it's no problem and that everything was resolved after seeing the footage. Lee goes to Kong, and the young man offers him some snacks, but he says that's not why he's here. The president introduces himself and reveals that he came to personally thank him for saving the film. He replies that he was just doing his job. Picking up the snacks, he asks what they are. Kong replies that it is a type of blind cookie. Lee hesitates as he ate these in the military, but decides to try them to be polite to the young man. Upon tasting them, he is surprised by the flavor. It is both sweet and salty, yet well seasoned. It also has a pancake-like taste, but without grease, making him consider the flavor magical. Pleased, the president says his daughter would love the food, and the young man replies that Min has already been there. The boss, moved, comments that he hopes his daughter thanked him properly. He calls for his daughter to come and eat with him, but there is no response. Lee wonders where she went, and the man looks confused. Kong asks Jean where the girl is. The eye reveals that it cannot locate her, not even in the recorded footage. Na steps out of the food truck and asks if she is inside the building. The system reveals that it cannot detect the president's daughter's presence nearby. Then, his phone starts ringing, displaying her name on the screen. He picks up the phone and says he received a signal, surprising the president that he has her number. He explains that she took his number to get more snacks later. Then, he proceeds to answer the call. Within a few moments of the call, his face turns serious. This catches Lee's attention and he calls out to him. The president asks why Kong looks so troubled. Na Kong Jin speaks into the phone, greeting the person on the other end of the line. A man approaches and calls out to the young man. He asks why he looks so upset, but the young man just ignores him and walks in another direction. He wonders about the probability that Minji broke her phone. The eye says it is unlikely. As the sound was different with that, the young man asks the eye to analyze what the sound was, and it plays the recorded data. The analysis is completed, and the eye determines that the sound came from a soft object wrapped in an outer layer. Then, there is a sound of plastic being pressed against metal. Echoes inside a confined space are also detected. Na Kong Jin ponders the soft object that was identified. He also reflects on the other sounds captured and the confined space. Quickly, he concludes that the eye might be saying the call was made from inside a car. Someone yells in frustration, asking how the other could kidnap someone and leave the victim with a phone. The kidnapper says he didn't know the girl had her phone. He also says he took the device from her quickly. But the other man says they will be suspected if they call again. Frustrated, the gang leader asks who the girl called, and they say the screen showed Snack Man. Asking if the girl wants something to eat, he jokes that he could bring her some food. Regardless, the leader orders them to move the car quietly since they need to escape before anyone notices. Nearby, the man next to Na Kong Jin calls him again and asks what's wrong. He says that after answering the call from his daughter, the young man became very serious and didn't say anything else, making him nervous. The eye activates the hostage rescue protocol. Quickly, the intelligence detects a backpack and snack wrappers left behind, which apparently belong to Minji. Following the crumbs left on the path, they lead toward a specific car without a second thought. Kong Jin runs from the location, leaving the girl's father in distress. The man tries to chase after him but finds his daughter's backpack on the ground and recognizes it inside the car. The driver is focused but notices the young man running after them and warns the boss. Desperate, the leader asks why the driver is reporting the situation so calmly and orders him to speed up. Accelerating, the car quickly gains speed and the AI confirms that they are indeed the enemies. It warns that they have noticed the young man's presence. It suggests a suitable weapon to deal with vehicles and advises the young man to use a traffic sign to defend himself. Quickly, Kong Jin grabs the object, which has a long metal pole. He keeps running after the car while holding the weapon in his hands. The kidnapper calls the young man insane and mocks him, saying he won't be able to catch the car while on foot. But he still orders the driver to accelerate even more. Meanwhile, the little girl cries desperately, calling for the snack man, her father, and her mother. Noticing that the young man is no longer close, the driver informs the boss that he's gone laughing. The leader says he probably got tired and collapsed from running. Suddenly, the young man appears from above and lands on top of the car. Shocking everyone inside, he swings the traffic sign and strikes the vehicle from above. Terrifying everyone, the driver loses control while the occupants of the car panic, wondering what is happening. Even so, the boss orders them to keep accelerating to throw the young man off. Kong Jin yells, asking the AI to find a way to stop the vehicle. And it suggests that he look at the hood. It tells him that if he pierces a specific point vertically, the engine will shut down. Without wasting time, the young man follows the instructions, causing the vehicle to become immobilized. Standing on the hood, he stares at the occupants of the car. But the driver slams on the emergency brake, launching the young man off. The onlookers scream as they see the boy flying through the air before hitting the ground. Laughing loudly, the kidnapper calls the protagonist an idiot for believing he could handle him. The artificial intelligence warns the young man that he could die if he lands too hard on the ground, so he manages to land on his feet. It states that the enemy's emergency brake was successfully triggered. Inside the car, the men comment on how the boy landed so effortlessly. Then the boss orders the driver to accelerate and run over the young man before he does anything. But as they step on the gas, the car loses control and the young man says the vehicle is broken. Frustrated, the boss hits the driver and orders them to get out of the car and kill the boy first. The young man asks about the girl, but the leader says he will hold on to her in the meantime. Getting out of the car, the enemies walk toward the young man, who is only a few meters away. They ask what the boy is given his skills, mocking them. Kangon says he is Batman. As the men consider responding, he suddenly appears and lands a powerful blow on one of them, sending him flying. The other man holds a knife and says the young man is too fast for his eyes to follow without hesitation. He is also taken down with an extremely strong kick. With the two men out of commission, the boy heads to the car to rescue the girl. The boss panics upon seeing Kangon at the car door and screams. Calmly, the young man says he will save the girl and that she doesn't need to worry. Thinking quickly, the protagonist asks the AI for a plan to subdue the kidnapper. The AI responds that the young man should jump into the car to overpower the enemy and gradually convince him to surrender, or he can lure him out of the car. Kangon opts to draw the man out of the vehicle. After all, the other option might put Minji in danger. The AI suggests that to lower the enemy's guard, the boy should step away from the area, since the kidnapper won't come out unless he feels safe. Seeing the boy step back, the kidnapper assumes he won't attack. He notices a group approaching and says he needs to leave before they arrive. Opening the car door, he steps out with the girl and holds a knife to her neck. Giving orders, he tells Kangon to get the car and not call the police or the girl will die. The father panics upon seeing his daughter in that situation. Desperate, he begs the young man's friend to tell him to get the car. Terrified, he runs toward Minji shouting. He says he will give the man the car, but in exchange he must not harm the girl, otherwise he will destroy the kidnapper's lineage. The kidnapper accepts the offer, but says the girl's father must retrieve the car, then rushes off. The others nearby ask if they should call the police, but one of the young men says they must keep this secret. The father drives the car and tells his daughter to hold on a little longer. As he is on his way, the act tells the protagonist that giving the villain a vehicle will increase the chances of him escaping with a hostage without hesitation. The father arrives with the car. He yells for the kidnapper not to touch Minji. Crying, a little girl calls out for her, but the villain points the knife at the young man and orders him to raise his hands and stay back. However, he cannot bear to see his daughter in that situation, disobeys the orders and runs toward the girl, saying he will save her. Losing patience, the enemy says he will kill the girl if the man gets any closer. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Kanji knows he must act fast to end it. A red liquid appears, increasing the tension in the area. The girl's father screams in despair. Then, the kidnapper collapses to the ground. Releasing Minji, it is revealed that the protagonist threw a rock at the man's head, hitting the target perfectly. The artificial intelligence states that the enemy was struck by a powerful weapon. A rock relieved, the father rushes to his daughter and embraces her. Later, several police vehicles arrive at the scene. The officers examine the enemies on the ground and notice that they have broken ribs and one has a head injury. They say that all three are in terrible condition, especially the one who was hit in the head with a rock, as it caused a skull fracture, and they suggest calling an ambulance. The girl's father asks why they are sending the kidnappers to the hospital and if they did anything good to deserve it. He insists that his daughter was kidnapped and that she should receive care first, while the officers say they cannot just leave the villains there. Worried, Minji asks if the snack truck man will be arrested for what he did, calming the young girl. Kanjin tells her not to worry, as her father will also save him. The eyes suggest that if the young man wants to escape, the police now is the right time and activates the escape protocol. The protagonist thinks that if the man is smart, he will use his influence to keep the young man out of jail. However, he believes that this will not happen. Before he can finish his thoughts, he notices the man raising his voice, telling the police officer that Kanjin saved his life and is innocent. Unmoved, the officer says he needs evidence to prevent the man from being arrested. Concerned, the father says they are in the mountains and there is no way to provide proof. But he is interrupted by a man who says he has a way to prove the protagonist's innocence. Looking up, he sees that it is the film director, who states that this is his film set and that he recorded many of the events. He shows the video of what happened, where the kidnappers are clearly filmed. With the perfect camera angles, the police conclude that the three men kidnapped the girl and threatened Kanjin. The director explains that the set is full of cameras and that when something happens, everything gets recorded. Everyone agrees that the protagonist is a hero who saved them all. The AI terminates the escape protocol. One of the officers says that even if the villain's leader dies, the young man will not be punished for the crime. The girl's father says that if anyone tries to unjustly punish the protagonist, he will show the recorded footage. Even so, Kanjin promises that he will not run away, but will take his leave because it is already dinner time. At a restaurant, he sits down to eat and asks if she wants to try a dessert. The little girl asks if the young man made the sweet, and he says yes, adding that he tried to please her, even if she wasn't very hungry. Quickly, the AI says that desserts increase emotional attachment and help win allies. Kong asks the girl to taste the sweet and says it is delicious. The father watches his daughter eat and asks her if the dessert is good. She says it is very tasty, while the father asks to try a little. Both are ecstatic with the flavor and say that everything the young man makes is delicious. Curious, the father asks the protagonist how he cooked the dessert since he wants to make it for the girl at home. Explaining, the young man says that a normal person wouldn't be able to make it because it requires strength to mix the ingredients quickly and season them properly. The father asks if the young man is a restaurant chef, but Kanjin states that he is just a worker at a computer cafe that serves food. The answer leaves the father shocked as he did not expect such a response. Suddenly, a person appears and calls out to Tahoe, leaving the man slightly confused. Shouting, a woman gets out of the car, asking if he is still eating. She is Minji's mother. He tries to explain, but the woman says that their daughter was nearly kidnapped and doesn't understand how he can be sitting there eating snacks. Irritated, she gets the man while the little girl cries out for her mother. She turns to her daughter and asks if she is okay, but then notices that the little girl is very dirty. Still trying to explain, the man says that it will sound strange, but there is a reason for the situation. But the woman is furious and threatens him, while Tahoe apologizes for what happened. The film director comments that he is seeing many sides of the boss that day. Another woman asks Sunbi to calm down, but she replies that she cannot stay calm, though she is warned that there are many people around. The young woman says she will handle the man quietly, without police or witnesses involved. Later, the girl's mother appears, thanking Kanjin for saving her daughter's life. He says it was only natural, and the woman states that she saw everything through the recorded footage. In detail, Sunbi recounts the moment when the young man saved the girl and says that he risked his life. Reassuringly, the man says that everything was controlled so that he wouldn't get hurt, but he is interrupted by Minji, who reminds him of his promise. Kanjin tells her that whenever she wants sweets and snacks, she just needs to call him. Feeling calmer, the woman says she is heading home since the girl needs to do her homework, and she bids farewell to her husband. Talking with the protagonist, Tahoe says that if it weren't for the young man, he and his wife would be in despair. At that moment, he thanks the young man once again and says he will treat him to a fancy meal sometime. Someone calls for President Tahoe to come over for a moment. As he approaches, a woman says she saw everything and mentions that the young man could do some action scenes. She asks if he is lying about working with computers. The young man affirms that it is not a lie, and the girl asks where the place is, requesting that he send her the address and phone number. Grabbing the young woman's phone, he saves his contact as Nat Kanjin. Happy, she thanks the young man. But then she quickly tells him not to get the wrong idea and that she only asked for his contact to visit the computer cafe. Leaving the place, he realizes that he doesn't even know the cafe's number. Someone appears, asking what is going on, and questioning who dared to publish something on the internet. It is Tahoe, and he is furious, demanding to know who uploaded the video of his daughter's rescue online. He accuses one of the people present as only they witnessed what happened. A man interrupts and says that public relations is calling on the other end of the line. The man asks if Minji is okay, and her father responds that a hero saved her and orders the video to be taken down from the internet. The artificial intelligence states that it is difficult to stop the video from being shared on social media, since it has already been reposted on foreign websites. With that, Tahoe simply asks them to find out who leaked the video. The director also becomes agitated and demands to know who released the footage, saying he will spare their life if they confess. In the car, somebody answers the phone and asks what the caller messed up this time. The person on the line asks her to listen without getting mad and informs her that the video of the young girl's rescue is all over the internet. Tahoe tells her not to worry and says he will find out who leaked the footage. Then it is revealed that Minji herself posted the video. Her father is confused, but they explain that earlier the girl got excited when she saw the video and posted it, calling the snack man a hero. The little girl said that someone like him deserved recognition, so she uploaded the footage to social media with this information. Tahoe is at a loss for how to react and is asked if there is a problem with the situation. He is interrupted by the director, who says he is disappointed in him. Shouting, the man says he thought the young girl's father would be able to distinguish right from wrong. The next day, someone watches the rescue video on a computer and says it is insane. They remark that it looks like a promotional video for a new movie as no normal person could perform those actions. The group agrees that when the film is released, they will get together to watch it. Looking more closely at the footage, one of the people in the group notices that the young man in the scenes resembles Kanjin. Thoughtful, the blonde girl says that the image quality isn't great, but the body looks like their friends. Another young woman says that even for him, performing those movements so effortlessly would be extremely difficult. Missing him, they wonder when he will return to work. A blue-eyed masked man appears, fighting against opponents. Sitting on the floor, the actress watches the scene. The young man is ready for the scene. The signal is given, and the filming begins. Looking deep into the girl's eyes, he asks if the poor princess is safe. The scene is recorded, and the director thanks everyone present on set. After filming, the man says that Kanjin's action scene was perfect, but when Sunny looked at Yuchen, her eyes changed completely. Running toward the protagonist, a director says he did a great job that day and thanks him for the footage. Kanjin asks if the work is finished, and the other young man replies that it is, and that filming will resume the next day. Before leaving, he asks about the situation regarding Minji's rescue video. The man explains that the video was exposed through various national and international channels and is circulating widely. But at least there have been no negative reports about the kidnapping, as that would harm the film. However, by luck or misfortune, people understood the video as a promotional teaser for the new movie. Additionally, he explains that they silenced the witnesses and are maintaining the story that it is a promotional video. Kanjin asks how Taho is doing, and he responds by asking how the young man thinks he feels, knowing that his daughter's video is circulating but that this is actually for the best. He states that thanks to the protagonist, they were able to sustain the narrative that everything was fiction. Moreover, with the success of the film, the script was changed and now Shin Eun has been given a lead role, which makes the girl grateful. Happy with the results, the president says he would like to treat the young man to a drink that night. He also invites the other actors from the movie, as everyone worked hard to make the filming happen. The I recommends that the young man accept the invitation, and he agrees. Later, the meal is served and both the food and drinks look delicious. Observing his companions, Kanjin thinks that Jeonjin has a wild side that is quite apparent. Before the girl can serve herself, her companion says he will serve the protagonist. But the young woman refuses and says that is her job. The two start arguing over who will pour the drink, but the president ends up doing it himself. Looking downcast, the man says he has always dreamed of being a film director. He explains that since high school he had been looking for opportunities in the film industry and participated in some independent films after making a few failed productions. He realized that he didn't have the talent for that profession. With that, his father offered him the chance to join the family business, but he didn't want to leave the industry, so he became a producer. Supporting him, Kanjin says he believes the man will still find success and encourages him to stay positive. Still seated around the table, the conversation continues and Taiho says that if the film fails, his company will be at risk. He explains that the company is a manufacturing firm that produces military and police equipment and has a solid reputation. His father gave him some shares in the company, but he cannot sell them as they are his father's and brother's livelihood. The man explains that he invested over 10 million in the film and used his shares as collateral. The actress is shocked by what she hears and Taiho says that if the production fails, his father will find out, and that would be disastrous. Yushin says that the president was truly bold to take such a risk. They ask what the company is called. He says it is Chitlin Engineering. The artificial intelligence calls the protagonist and says it has information about that company. Without wasting time, it begins detailing all the data stored in its system and states that in 2024, the company produced its last model. Kanjin asks for further explanation and the AI provides all the information it has about the company. Curious, he ponders how such a well-known company could have stopped production after 2024, and he wonders if it was due to the drug scandal, the set collapse, and Minji's kidnapping. Since everything seems connected, noticing that the young man is lost in thought, Taiho asks if something is wrong, as he seems a bit upset. But the young man says the problem isn't with him, it's with Mr. Lee. He states that if the movie fails, a man's shares will disappear, putting his father's company at risk. Taz says that will only happen if he loses his shares, and though he might be fired, the company's stocks will remain safe. Understanding finance, Kanjin says he doesn't believe the situation is that simple. The protagonist states that he has had suspicions for a few days now and believes that the accident on set wasn't natural. Taiho says that after the young man raised his suspicions, the police opened an investigation into the incident and some debris is still being analyzed. Predicting the future, Kanjin says that forensics will likely conclude that there is no definitive evidence proving that the incident was orchestrated, raising even more doubts. The young man says that a week ago, the lead actor of the film was arrested at a party, which is suspicious. Yuchin explains how the arrest happened and asks what that has to do with the current production, and the protagonist explains that the arson was an unforeseen incident that wasn't in anyone's plans. Everyone else is left in shock by what they hear. He says that because the police raided the party, the movie had to be refilmed within a week. Kanjin asks what would have happened if the incident had occurred right before the movie's release or just a day before its premiere. Pressing further, he continues questioning what would have happened if they had waited until the eve of the premiere to report the party. The table falls silent and the other actors whisper that the film wouldn't have made it to theaters or would have been pulled shortly after. Speaking to Taiho, the young man asks if, in case the movie fails, the plan is to ask his father for help, and he confirms. The young man states that if this is a setup and the movie fails, his father's company will also be a target. With that, Childen Engineering wouldn't be in a position to help Mr. Lee's film company. Trying to justify himself, the president says he would use all his connections if that were to happen. But Kanjin pushes further, asking if had Minji really been kidnapped, Mr. Lee would even be in the right state of mind to handle such actions. After all, the man wouldn't just lose 10 billion because the movie didn't premiere. His daughter would be missing and the company's stock would plummet instantly. Concluding, the protagonist says that's why Minji was kidnapped, so that Lee would lose his sanity and the company would become a target. Taiho says he hadn't planned on bringing the girl to the film set that day, but the young man counters, asking if he wasn't planning to go there when the set collapsed. Stammering, the man says that of course he was going. Then he concludes that whoever caused the accident at the filming studio knew that the president would be at the location with his daughter. The actress stands up from the table and shouts, asking if someone collapsed the set to hurt her. But the young man says the target was the set, not her. However, if someone had been injured, it would have caused chaos, which was what they wanted to make it easier to kidnap the little girl. The protagonist says the kidnappers probably thought it was a flawless plan. Sunhee says that if they investigate the kidnappers, they should be able to find out who is behind this. At the police station, the officers are frustrated with the trio that was previously arrested. The chief is angry with their answers and says that they claim to have heard that the young girl would be at the studio, which is why they decided to kidnap her. One of them responds saying that the girl's father is a billionaire and they thought that by kidnapping the girl, they could demand a huge ransom. And since it was a mountainous area, the trio believed no one would be able to catch them, but they all claim not to remember who told them about the rumor that the girl would be there, only that they heard it at a bar. The chief orders an investigation into which bar it was, but the police say they already checked. And there's no evidence back at the restaurant. Kanjin says that would be the scenario if it sounds like an interesting story and that they were completely immersed in it. As everyone talks about how this could make a great screenplay, Minji's father sits in deep thought. Later, Yuchin leaves the bar quite cheerful from the drinks he had. Reflecting on what happened, Tavo says he won't use the company's shares like that again. Meanwhile, Kanjin thinks the company must be strong because otherwise, they wouldn't risk something so dangerous. His thoughts are interrupted by Sunny, who asks if he has time to have another drink with her. He agrees, but says all three of them should go together. Later, Lee Taho's father yells, calling his son an idiot, saying he can't believe he used the company's shares to fund a movie. Regretful, the man says it's a project that could help the company grow and improve its image. Lee Taesung, Taho's brother, says that the company's situation isn't good. Taeho asks why, since he had heard that Chilin was developing an amazing new product. His brother says that because of this, someone has been trying to interfere with the company's bids. But since their shares are solid, it seems that the interference has stopped. Standing up, Lee asks if these people might be behind his daughter's kidnapping. His brother says that some competitors likely made a move, but that the investors looking to acquire the company are suspicious. Before anything else, the father decides to clarify the situation and asks his son if he is sure the movie won't fail. The man says yes and that the new footage is even better than the original version, while the elder thanks the stunt double. Taeho says that thanks to Kanjen, they were able to film everything quickly. His father thinks that if his son's company is doing well, Cheelin is protected from external attacks and asks if he is right. Agreeing, the young man says they are protected, but that he will further reinforce their defenses. Before saying goodbye, the older man warns that if his son touches the shares again, he will disinherit him. Going to his room to sleep, the boy thanks Mr. Kanjen for his help. But he is interrupted by his father, who says he needs to reward the protagonist since he helped him a lot. However, the young man thinks that the boy is already at a level beyond where he could offer him any position. One of the girls working in the computer area receives a ticket to watch the movie and is asked if she wants to attend the premiere. She says she is not sure and that she has no time, while Kanjen says she does not need to worry about going. However, she changes her mind. The other co-workers ask the boy about their invitation, and the protagonist questions whether they will not be working quickly. The two say that new workers have started at the place, explaining that they are robots that clean everything by themselves. Returning to the movie topic, everyone comments that they saw the promotional video for the production and found the publicity beautiful. They say they can skip their part-time job to accompany the young man at the movie premiere, but the protagonist believes it is just an excuse for them to take a break. Later, they wonder who is coming. They call for Yuchen and ask him to look ahead. The movie actors are taking pictures during the production's launch. They ask Shin Yunhai to make a heart for the photographers, and the girl complies with the request. Many celebrities are at the venue to watch the movie premiere. The blonde girl asks why her friend is not there with the other actors, and he says his face does not appear in the movie. Noticing his friend's presence, Yuchen greets him from afar and informs him that Kanghyun is there. Freaking out, Ryam believes the actor smiled and greeted her, but her friend says he probably did that for the journalist. Yunhai is happy to see the protagonist there. Noticing the interaction, the computer guy thinks the woman waved at him. Kanghyun decides it is time to enter the cinema hall, but notices Yunseo is missing. Looking around, he sees her talking to the movie's lead actress. Ryam appears, asking if her friend is getting an autograph from the girl. The protagonist also approaches and asks if the two women know each other. Yunhai asks how the other young woman knows Kanghyun, and she says her uncle owns the computer room where the boy works. Confused, the nerdy young man asks if they are sisters, but Seu says they have different surnames. However, they do know each other as they grew up in the same neighborhood when they were little. Talking to Yuchen, Kanghyun asks why he acted as if he knew him in front of the reporters. Ryam is incredulous upon seeing her friend speaking so casually with the actor. Minji appears, calling for the snack boy. Picking her up, he asks how she is. The girl's parents approach and say they have saved good seats for the young man. The fact that actress Jang Mijeong is there shakes the protagonist's friends. He says he already has tickets, but Taeho asks him to discard them since he is one of the production's lead actors. Happy, the friends wonder if they should learn to cook so they can sit close to a celebrity too. In the cinema hall, the director says he would be happy if Kanghyun went up on stage for the greetings, but the young man declines, saying he is not an actor. Thoughtful, the director says that if it were not for the boy, they would have hardly finished filming the movie. The screen lights up and the production begins to play. Outside, two people listen to the sounds coming from the cinema hall. The two get curious and wonder why the audience is gasping all at once. After the screening, the movie ends and everyone applauds the cinematic work. The eye says that if it were not for the boy's help and hers, it would have been a rather ordinary film. Those who watched the movie say that the 2 hours flew by. The next steps are the greetings on stage and the interview with director Seonta Min and the actors. Receiving the applause, those involved thank everyone for coming. Seonta says he has something to confess to the audience about the project. He says that the scenes of the set collapsing were real and not fiction, and that they only used footage of the real accident after obtaining everyone's authorization. Concluding that of course no one was hurt, otherwise he would never have used such material. Taeho believes that public opinion can still worsen, but if anything happens, he will deal with it later. One of the journalists present raises his hand and asks if they received any treatment for the incident. He also says that the actress seemed genuinely shocked and questions whether she suffered any issues because of it. The young woman denies it and says she was rescued safely. They ask if in the action scenes it was Kim Eugene, and he replies that if he had filmed them, he probably wouldn't be alive anymore. He explains that in some scenes stunt doubles were used. The actor states that his stunt double had a body similar to his, which is why he was used in the action scenes, but he asks the journalist to omit this information from the article that will be published. Later, the movie news appears on the young man's website and many comments start pouring in 2 days later. Rhea shows her phone and states that the movie is ranked number 1. Kongjin asks why she treats the movie as if it were hers, and the young woman says she considers the boy as part of her family. So his things are hers too. She asks why her friend doesn't become a real actor, but he says that one movie is enough. The girl is disappointed, saying she thought she could see a celebrity again. The protagonist says he is busy with other things, but the girl asks if he hasn't been playing around the whole time. Curious, Rhea asks what he does in his free time besides being a chef. Without hesitation, the young man replies that he has a special mission for Earth's unity. Laughing, Taeho celebrates with the director the success of the movie and Sudiman says he told him everything would work out. The director states that he was confident the production would have a large audience happy. The man says that at this pace, he will recover the 10 million he invested. He says that on the first day he almost cried since the theaters were empty, but now he is very happy already thinking about the next movie. The director says he is considering hiring stunt doubles on a large scale, but Taeho says it will be a romance film. However, the man states that if he can count on Kongjin, he will jump straight into the scriptwriting process. Suggesting an idea, Minji's father tells the director to sign the next movie with his company, guaranteeing that it will also be a box office success. Tae asks if Sum has already spoken with Kongjin, and the man says he will attempt it immediately. He decides to call the protagonist at that moment. On the other end of the line, the young man sees that it is a call from an unknown number. Nearby, they announce that they have brought 2 special guests from the movie Sunny Day. They welcome Eugene and Shin Yoonha. Theater round a table, the radio host asks how the two feel about the success of the production. The actor says he is very grateful and that he is receiving many interview and advertisement requests. The interviewer asks if the story about the set collapsing is true, and the actress confirms, saying she was saved from being hit by a piece of metal. She asks where Eugene was at the time. Without missing a beat, he says he was taken out of the location before the accident, and that this didn't appear in the movie because he flew away. The journalist is incredulous, saying that the stunt actor is incredible and seems to have calculated everything in such a short time. Yoonha says the boy is not a professional actor and is just the food truck guy. Eugene adds that he jumped onto a moving car without being strapped in. With this information, the journalist says she watched the movie but didn't see a scene like that in the production. The two realize they have said too much, and the actress says her friend is talking about unnecessary things. Changing the subject, a question arrives from the audience asking if the video of the car stopping was actually part of the movie's promotion. Both actors start sweating nervously, unsure of how to respond in the chat. Everyone starts asking about the scene and how the young man stopped the car. Listening to the interview, Taeho freaks out at the actor, calling him an idiot. Desperate over what was said, the man believes he needs an urgent strategy to resolve the situation. His employee says they will need to reveal the young man's identity earlier than planned, which was originally set for 20 days later. Tae asks if there is no other way, but the young man says that if they waste time, the situation will spiral out of control. He calls Kenjin and explains, but the boy says that this revelation is already overdue since it could have been made on the day of the accident. More at ease, the man says that the protagonist always sees the positive side of things and that now they just need to deal with the situation. The eye says it will make people see the video as something impressive rather than serious, and that instead of feeling guilty about Minji, the focus should be on how Kenjin was asking if the boy is okay with that. He says to move forward but not to mention his name. On the radio, they decide to take a commercial break and return soon with part 2 of the interview. Speaking on the phone, the actor apologizes for what happened. Desperate, he says that if there is anything he can do, he will do it to make up for the situation. He is ordered to reveal everything about the incident in the most striking way possible. Taeho, on the other end of the line, says there is nothing more they can do since they had planned to reveal everything in 20 days. The young man is instructed to say that the food truck guy handled everything and that, because of this, it will not seem like a serious accident. He is called back to the studio, but before hanging up, he confirms that he will not mention the protagonist's name back in the interview. Yu-chun says he will explain what happened in the footage, since he did not have time to do so earlier. The actor says it was a real event that happened on the first day of filming and that some kidnappers tried to take Minji Lee. The journalist then realizes why the young man had to jump onto the car. It was a critical situation. Yu-chun explains that the food truck man acted quickly to safely save the girl. In the chat, everyone wonders if the guy is human and how he survived such an action. Many people start asking who the young man is and how he managed to do that. The comments keep coming and everyone is incredulous about the story. The ad reports that online information about the movie is growing rapidly. Kang Joon says it's fine since his name and face were not revealed. But he asks Jin if he could actually go to the Olympics, and the AI says he wouldn't pass the doping test. He asks about baseball and she responds that the sport also controls doping. Tired, the boy says he won't do anything else and lies down. But the AI says they need to change their temporary base to something more stable, and that any place would be better than that computer room. Thoughtful, the young man asks if they could build a new base with the budget they have. Jane says that the payment for the current movie has just arrived and the protagonist asks how much he received. He is informed that 5 million won have been deposited into his account. Ryam appears and says that from the moment she saw the video, she thought the stuntman was Kang Joon. She says she has a good eye for recognizing people and finds the situation very cool talking to her friend. She asks if he has ever seen someone who looks like Kang Joon before. The young man replies that the person he saw was incredibly skilled as well, but that in any case they weren't better than the protagonist. Lying in bed, the boy says his ears are burning and wonders what that could mean. A woman enters through a door and is welcomed. It is actress Yona and she asks if this is where Kang Joon works. Surprised, the young man tries to ask if she is the famous girl, but is interrupted by Yoon-seo. Happy, she asks what her friend is doing there and the young woman says she came to talk to the boy and also heard that the store's food is good. The blonde girl informs her that the friend is in his room at the moment and explains that he lives there, shocking the woman with the information. She asks why he lives there and if he doesn't have a home, but she says he temporarily eats and sleeps at the store. Concluding, she says she even offered him a place to stay in her house, but it would be strange for a man and a woman to live together, but it disagrees. Embarrassed, the blonde agrees, saying that Appa wouldn't be that kind of person. Then she tells her friend she can go to where he is resting. She approaches and knocks on the door, causing the protagonist to get up. The young woman opens the door, leaving the boy surprised by her presence. Wasting no time, she says she came to apologize for what Yu-chan said on the radio earlier. Kenjin says that she wasn't the one who said anything, but she says that she also appeared in the same interview and feels guilty. And that, even if it wasn't true, he is probably getting scolded by Rose. Tired, the young man asks if she came all the way there just to say that. But Yona says she also came because she heard the food was delicious. Frustrating the girl's plans, the protagonist says they are not serving food that day because, and he states that he is looking for a place to live since that room is not ideal. Curious, the actress asks why he is living there, but the boy cuts her off, saying he has his reasons determined. She says she will go with him and that it will be nice to have someone helping him choose later. The two are inside a house that only has a refrigerator and an old air conditioner. Yona is startled to see that it is a small studio and asks if the stunt double didn't receive his payment. The girl doesn't understand how someone with great skills like him stays in a computer room and wants to live in a studio. She asks how much he got for being part of the movie and says she will help him find a better place. Without hiding, he replies that he earned 5 million, leaving the girl speechless. Quickly, she grabs her phone and calls someone. On the other end of the line is Taeho's wife, who asks why she is calling. The woman asks if she is calling to plead for Yu-chun. Yona says she will not comment on Seonbae's decision and the woman says she will let him survive. All at once, the girl says she is calling because she thinks the amount her friend received for the movie is wrong. Unaware of the situation, the woman says the young man should have earned more and that she will check with Lee to see what happened. After the call, the actress suggests that she and her friend continue looking for better places. While waiting for the woman's response on the street, Yona walks, covered up to avoid being recognized by the people nearby. Meanwhile, Seonbae talks to her husband and says that he only paid 5 million to the young man who saved the movie, and Taeho is also surprised. He says that director Seon was very busy with the film and did not inform them that there were changes in the recording. The two friends continue looking at the apartment in the meantime. Taeho says the payment department just processed the amount that was recorded, but given the young man's work, That amount is unacceptable, so he recalculated the value as a stunt coordinator rather than a simple stunt double. That way, he decides to transfer 100 million immediately to the young man. At the apartments, the girl says the deposit is 5 million. And that the rent is good for that price. Besides, it has a beautiful view, and the AI tells the boy that you will be able to see enemies from a distance. Curious, the girl asks what the young will do with the rest of the money. While Jin suggests he buy a car, Kenjin says he needs a vehicle, and the actress suggests a place she considers good. Not understanding, the young man asks the girl why she wants to help him. And he directly asks if she likes him. The girl gets embarrassed, asks what the boy is trying to say, and yells at her friend, saying that question is ridiculous. She says she is an actress and that her schedule allowed her to be free that day and everything else was a coincidence. Irritated and shouting, she says she would help the young man even if they were just friends. Noticing the young woman's reaction, the boy says he was just joking and thanks her for the help. But Yoonha is still upset and says she didn't help him. Just to hear something like that, the AI makes a comment and the protagonist tells it to shut up, but the actress thinks he was talking to her. Then, Yoonha says she wants to talk about the day of the accident. She says that if she had been hit by the steel beam, she could have been seriously injured, but he saved her otherwise. She would not be alive at that moment. Thoughtful, she says she always thought she was fine with the situation. But when she was alone, she started realizing some things. When she went home, she kept thinking about what happened and her heart raced. The young woman says this had never happened before, but since that day, she has been very anxious. She reveals that the accident kept appearing in her dreams and that being close to the young man makes her feel safe. After finishing her confession, she realizes that Kenjin wasn't listening to anything she said. The two Motui used car dealership. Yoonha gets irritated when she sees that he wants a car like that. She says there are many good cars in the place and doesn't understand why he wants that piece of junk. The salesman says that the young woman is right and that the car is not very good since there are things that could not be repaired. The actress calls her friend and says she will take a better look at other cars before leaving. Kenjin asks to take a look at that initial vehicle. He asks the AI if he could repair the car and she says yes. The assessments continue and he notes that the model is from the year 2000 while the AI is from 2082, making it an 82-year-old model. But Jean tells him not to worry since she has manuals for cars up to 100 years old. With that, Kenjin says he likes it and will take that car, surprising Yoonha the salesman. The boys advise that the car is not in the best condition, but he asks for a lower price. He decides to negotiate with the salesman, much to Yoonha's dismay later. He asks the AI if it wouldn't be better to fix the car in the garage of his new apartment, but Jean warns that the neighbors would get suspicious, so she decides to search for a location where the repairs can be done using her database quickly. She finds a closed junkyard and Kenjin asks where she found it. Jean explains that she collects important information while accompanying the boy. She instructs him to take the parts he needs and then repair the vehicle. Arriving at the junkyard, a young man is accompanied by Yoonha, who asks what this place is. Annoyed, she questions why he brought the old car there. But the boy asks her not to speak like that. The girl refuses to accept it and asks if her friend is making a horror movie and didn't tell her, which is why he brought her there. Both enter through a door and there is a workshop inside. Curious, she asks if the protagonist is serious and if he is really going to fix the car there. She questions whether he knows how to work as a mechanic and if he doesn't need a specific license. But Kenjin claims that Nyo2 teaches anything without stopping. The girl starts imagining different scenarios where the car explodes, but the boy asks why she assumes she will be riding in his car. Once again, she asks what this place is and the young man says it's a junk shop. He explains that he rented the place for a year so he could use it. Putting on gloves, he looks at the girl who doesn't quite understand. Without hesitation, he asks if Eun plans to follow him around all day. His words irritate the actress and she says she is not following the boy. It was he who brought her there. Frustrated, she says she will leave him alone and that if he gets bored it's not her problem. But there is no transportation in the area. Yun says she will call her manager to pick her up, but there is no signal on her phone since they are in the middle of the mountains. Realizing she is stuck there, she becomes scared, even more nervous. Kenjin closes the door and says he has been planning this situation for a long time, and asks why the girl thinks he brought her there. The girl starts screaming, saying she is not ready for this situation, but the protagonist tells her to be quiet and orders her to help him fix the car. John Jane teaches the protagonist how to repair the car's engine sitting down. Shai Ilhan claims that the boy is just provoking her, and in response he says her reaction was very funny. Curious, the brown-haired girl asks that he shouldn't be noting the order of the parts while disassembling the engine. Because in a movie she watched, a character didn't do that, and everything went wrong. Confident, the young man says he remembers all the steps. Impressed, the young woman says his memory is incredible, while the AI in his body claims that the compliment should be for her. Closing the car hood, Nakanjan announces that he is done, and his companion questions how that is possible since only an hour has passed. Pointing his finger, the boy orders her to sit in the driver's seat for a test. But the young woman refuses to convince her. He says that he calculated everything precisely and did the repair perfectly, so she can trust that nothing will explode inside the car. The young woman is surprised at how quiet the engine sounds and states that she thought the boy was only good at fighting and cooking. Smug, he responds that he is impressive in every way. Shui Yun, he then asks why he rented the warehouse for a year if he has already fixed the car. Thinking to himself, the boy says that if the apartment he found in Seoul is the base of his life, the workshop will be the production base for him to manufacture the necessary equipment for his missions. But to the young woman, he simply says she doesn't need to know. Leaving her irritated, she then asks where they are going, and the boy says he will take her home since she didn't bring her own car. Turning to him, the young woman says that in that case, she has a favor to ask. She then asks if he could install a smart lighting system in her house. Refusing, the boy tells her to ask her parents. Insisting, she says that both of them live far away, and that her younger brother is very ignorant. Unbothered, the young man says she can call someone, appealing to the boy's emotions. She says she needs help because she is scared. Moreover, every night she has the same dream which doesn't let her sleep at all. Listening to the conversation, the AI tells the young man that this is common among soldiers in war zones and could be a form of PTSD. Out loud, the boy says that rescuing civilians is a basic mission of the Earth Union Army, leaving the young woman confused. Looking at her, he says he will help her at the apartment in no time at all. McCann announces that he is finished. Handing the young woman her phone, he asks her to test it. Obeying, she is impressed to see that it really works. Twisting a strand of hair around her finger, she thanks the boy, heading toward the door. He says he is leaving, but the young woman asks him to wait. Then she asks if he isn't hungry. She plans to make a wonderful meal so he can stay and eat. Blushing, the young woman says that since she already owes him 2 favors, she can't ask him to cook as well, and giving up on cooking, she says she knows a great restaurant where the chef is Jucho, who has appeared on television. Jaivenjian says this is a great opportunity to learn more about local culture and gather information. Covering his mouth, the boy says the AI just wants to eat, while he himself stays silent, embarrassed. Smiling, he tells the young woman that the food there had better be better than his. In front of Penelope restaurant, Xia Yanhai picks out of the car, stating that the place is famous. So it's not easy to get a reservation. The young man asks if she has one, and in response she confirms, saying she made the reservation the night before. The boy says he thought it was hard to get a spot, but she responds that for someone like her it isn't, since she is a hot, trending, and ultra-beautiful actress. Entering the place, she also says that she has filmed various programs with the restaurant's chef. Noticing something different, the boy asks who she planned to invite since she made the reservation the night before, leaving her embarrassed. Then, not understanding anything, Makanjian asks why they are at a cafe instead of going to the restaurant. Explaining the dynamics of a date, the young woman says that first, the couple should chat at a cafe until they feel hungry. Thinking to himself, the boy says that the fact that his information is in the databases means he once had a normal life, but then why would he be here instead of in the Earth Union Army of 2082? Interrupting his thoughts, the brown-haired young woman decides to call the restaurant to request a table by the window. However, on the other end of the line, someone states that she doesn't have a reservation, leaving her extremely angry with tears in her eyes. She hangs up and explains that someone more important showed up and took her spot. Unbothered by the situation, the boy says he can cook gukbap for both of them. Still furious, the young woman refuses, asking him to stay where he is while she checks how important this other VIP is. Sipping his coffee, the boy talks to the ad, which says the drink is delicious. In the building's lobby, the security guard notices the blinds moving. To his panic, a group of masked robbers appears. One of them runs up and kicks the man in the stomach. Then he states that their target is Penelope, who is on the 7th floor. so everyone on the other floors must be controlled. At the restaurant, Shin Yunha yells at the chef, asking how he could do that to her. The man apologizes but says that a very important last-minute reservation came up, so since she was the last person to make a reservation, there was nothing he could do, especially because her reservation was non-official. Indignant, the young woman says that in that case they should have warned her earlier. In response, the man says he thought the staff had done so, promising that if she returns the next day, she will receive special treatment. But the young woman says she won't be able to bring her guest tomorrow since she won't have any excuse for it. Sitting at the table that was supposed to be hers, a man in a suit talks to Hyung, who says over the phone that he will not attend. The man in the brown suit says that now he will have to eat alone. In response, the other suggests he call his wife or someone else. Apologizing for the inconvenience, he ends the call and the brown-haired man sighs, because eating alone is not something he likes or is used to. Looking to the side, he notices Shin Eun has presence and approaches her. Leaving her surprised, he asks if she came alone. If the young woman says she has company, though her reservation was cancelled. Lee Tae-ho says that's good, leaving the young woman intrigued. Explaining, he says that his guest cancelled, forcing him to eat alone, but now he can join the young woman and Nae Kanjin after all. 3 is better than 2. The chef agrees, saying that the table was hers to begin with. Still on the lower floor, the young man continues enjoying his coffee, asking Jan Jane to chemically analyze what makes this drink so different from the one served at his workplace. But the AI says that information input is only possible through the agent's body. Looking at his phone, the young man notices that the young woman hasn't responded for some time. Curious, the AI asks if he really prefers beef soup over gourmet restaurant dishes, but he says he was just being polite responding. The machine says she didn't know he was polite, and the young man says she must have a bug for being so rebellious. Concerned, the protagonist looks at the clock and realizes it has been 20 minutes since his friend left. Suddenly, the AI says an anomaly has been detected, because all nearby smartphones have lost signal. The young man asks if there is another anomaly nearby. In response, the AI says that the first 4 blinds are closed, as well as the entrance and emergency doors. To understand better, Nae Kanjin says they need to hear what the people on that floor are saying. Using his ability to enhance his hearing, the young man confirms that it is not a fire, so he needs to go downstairs to check more closely. His partner warns that armed individuals have been detected on the 2nd floor. Seeing 3 men through the wall, the young man states that using weapons in Korea is already crossing the line. The AI orders him to retreat because the enemy is approaching, but the place has only one door as an alternative. June suggests that he break the cafe window and jump out. Fearing the fall, the young man refuses, but the AI tells him he is on the 2nd floor, so he won't get too hurt in the restaurant. The robbers break down the door, shooting at the panic. Then, one of them demands that everyone remain silent, stating that anyone who screams will be eliminated immediately. Lee Tae-ho, with his hands up, asks what is happening and if this is some kind of setup, but upon looking at the chef's face, he concludes that it is not. Shin Il-ha asks what they should do in response. The man says they need to stay calm and do as they are told. So, everyone in the room begins moving silently to a corner nervous. The young woman says that Nae Kanjin is on the 2nd floor, worrying the man in the brown suit. Grabbing her phone, she says that if she calls the young man, he will come to rescue them, but suddenly, a gun is pointed at her head. The robber next to her says that phones are forbidden, and that there is no signal anyway. Frightened, the young woman raises her hands and starts sweating nervously as she moves to the corner of the room, as the man ordered. Afraid, the president says that no matter how strong the young man is against a gun, there is nothing he can do. Meanwhile, the hero, still on the 2nd floor, analyzes the idea of breaking the window to escape. However, remembering his mission to rescue civilians for the United Earth Alliance, he states that retreating is not an option. Suddenly, part of the gang of robbers invades the cafe, ordering everyone to raise their hands and stay still. Observing, the customers wonder if this is a flash mob or something related to an internet stream, infuriating the group's leader. Taking a drastic measure, the man shoots one of the display cases, making everyone realize this was no joke. With his hands up, Nae Kanjin asks the AG to identify the type of weapon being used. Obeying, the assistant says that the weapon is a semi-automatic 9mm equipped with a high-performance suppressor besides having a noise reduction module, The young man concludes that with such advanced equipment, the robbers must also be highly skilled sensing the danger. John Jane states that the young man should retreat immediately, but he refuses, saying that this is not a smart decision. The AI asks what his reasons are for refusing to leave. Thinking, he says that since his friend hasn't returned, the 7th floor must have been taken over first. Upstairs, the young woman hopes he doesn't come, and the president beside her says that if he shows up, he'll be eliminated, looking at a woman in green being held hostage by the robbers. The man states that she is the target, meaning they themselves are not important. The woman is Scarlett Kelly, CEO and head of research at Ongak, a famous American technology company. Smiling, Shin Yunha asks if the company is like Apple, but the man denies it, saying that the woman's company develops military weapons. It is revealed that Lee Taeho's father is the CEO of Iron Man Tech, which manufactures military and police equipment. So when his brother Lee Tae-sung learned that Scarlett would be at the restaurant, he asked him to make a reservation. Since he owns a well-known company in the film industry, he contacted the chef and secured a spot. But now his brother isn't there, and only he is in danger. Curious, the young woman asks if this is then a dispute between arms dealers. One of the robbers overhears the conversation and warns that if they make any more noise, they will be taken out. Pointing the gun at the red-haired woman, the gang leader demands that she give up the access code so she can be spared. Because no matter how much she loves money, if she has no life, she won't be able to use it without revealing the code. A woman asks how much she is being paid to do this, stating that whatever the amount, she will double it so they can end this without anyone getting hurt. Laughing, the robber rejects the offer and says he isn't doing this for money. Kelly then says he can do whatever he wants, but she will not reveal the code. Ordering the woman to start walking, the man says he will test whether that's true, pointing at the hostages. He says he can make all of them suffer, leaving the red-haired woman very apprehensive. On the 2nd floor, John Jane says she detected 2 unusual noises from above, which might be gunfire. The young man asks if the noise is coming from the 7th floor. In response, the AI states that it's coming from the 3rd floor and up, and she also heard glass breaking. Thinking to himself, the young man wonders what could have caused them to fire twice. Then concluding that the robbers must be threatening people behind the closed blinds. Behind him, a desperate little boy starts crying, and the robbers, irritated, ask the mother if she can't keep him quiet. Kneeling in front of the child, the woman pleads with him to calm down because mommy is here. Furious, one of the gang members points his gun and states that if the noise continues, everyone will be eliminated. Trying to prevent a tragedy, the young man from the future jumps onto a table and says he is a police officer. Looking back, the masked man is startled. Striking a combat pose, the young man apologizes and says he's not used to getting so much attention. Then immediately states that shooting someone for crying is not something a human being does. Raising his gun again, the man orders him to be quiet. His accomplice follows suit, asking if the young man thinks they won't shoot just because he's standing in front of the window glass. But before the robber can pull the trigger, the young man appears behind him, lending a precise hit with his leg. With the impact, the gun flies away. On the ground, the man orders the others to subdue the young man. Another gang member fires multiple shots but misses every single one. The AI informs the young man that the cafe's window is bulletproof, so the bullets can't penetrate it. With great agility, he moves behind a table for cover. While the robbers keep firing non-stop, using only his body, Nakangan runs and strikes the other robbers, who also fall to the ground. However, even so, one of them manages to fire, seemingly hitting him. Fortunately, the AI calculates the bullet's trajectory, and he manages to dodge it by flipping in midair. Shocked, the robber keeps shooting, saying that he won't be able to dodge all the bullets. To stop him, the young man lands another hit and the man passes out. Watching the scene, the other hostages are completely stunned by what happened. Everyone starts screaming, thanking the young man for saving them. Catching him off guard, the children in the room run toward him. Excited, the little ones ask if he is a hero for being able to do all that. The AI, noticing one of the robbers on the ground with strawberry juice spilling, warns that this is not good for the children's mental health, making the young man rush to cover the scene. Looking at him, the children ask what he is doing, trying to play it off. He says it's nothing they need to worry about. With the weapons in his possession, his assistant states that he can now get the people out of there, but the young man says it's still dangerous because other robbers might be outside keeping watch. Thus, the young man concludes that he first needs to turn this floor into a fortress to protect all the civilians. Only then, moving silently, can he ensure that the people on the 7th floor are not harmed. Removing the robbers' masks, he notices that they appear to be foreigners but of the same ethnicity, so the plan must be to take something from here and escape abroad, seeing that their firepower is still low. The AI orders him to hand the weapons to the civilians. Surprised, the young man questions how the AI knows this is the right move. In response, she says that basic tactics are stored picking up one of the weapons. The young man asks if at least 2 people here know how to handle it. 4 people raise their hands. John Giant warns that there may be spies among the group, so he must choose carefully. To make his decision, the young man asks about the volunteers' backgrounds. Based on this, he decides to give 2 of the 4 men a weapon. Because both have children, meaning it is unlikely that infiltrators would have brought their kids to do something like this. Then, he informs them that he will check the other floors while the men stand guard giving instructions. He asks that the 2 not hand the weapons to anyone and not let anyone enter except the police. Searching the tied-up robbers, Nick Hangen picks up a radio that seems to have been modified for short-range communications. Suddenly, a voice comes from the device saying they heard a noise and asking what's happening. Using the ad, the young man alters his voice to sound like the masked man with the rabbit face, then explains to the other person on the line that he was disciplining someone who wasn't following orders. The other hostages are shocked by the voice change. Asking for silence, he requests that another robber come upstairs to show everyone that there are more than just 3 of them. And proceeding with the plan, he asks if anyone has a compact mirror. A young woman steps forward. Saying she has one. Smiling, he thanks her. Outside the cafe, the young man observes how professional the robbers are, as they even deactivated the elevators suddenly. His assistant warns that there is movement on the 1st floor, then activates combat mode. Climbing the stairs, one of the robbers tells another that he will check what happened. Listening to the conversation, the young man concludes that the robbers haven't known each other for long, so someone important must have gathered them for this operation, and that leader must be on the 7th floor. Seeing a robber approaching, the young man attacks, and with a single blow knocks the man unconscious. Looking through the mirror, he sees a security guard walking calmly. Concluding that the man is also a robber, so using all of his agility, he attacks again with his fist. Curious, John Julian asks how he knew the man was an enemy. In response, the young man says he saw the radio he was carrying, trying to earn some praise. The AI says that if she hadn't interfered, the punch wouldn't have been effective. The young man then tells her she's amazing, then asks her to stop talking. Returning to the cafe, the young man takes the 2 tied-up robbers to the corner where the others are. Turning his attention to the Real security guard, who was found unconscious, the 2 men standing guard with weapons say they can leave now, but the young man says it's not possible because besides the powerful weapons, the gang might have planted traps like landmines at the entrance. Additionally, the shutter button in the security room isn't working either. So to fix it, he will have to go to the control room upstairs. Shocking the 2 men with his courage. Reaching the 3rd floor, the AI reports that no one is there and that all rooms are locked. Just like on the 4th floor, where there are no breathing sounds, only the sound of sparks coming from behind an open door. Looking through the crack in the door, the young man realizes he has found the control room, but is completely destroyed, making it very difficult to call for help. Recapping the robbers' movements, Mae Kinjin concludes that Shin Yunha is not the target. His assistant agrees, saying that the young woman is not a strategic target, but the young man reprimands him. Outside the building, one of the guards among the robbers notices a police car approaching. Standing up, he wonders what they are doing there if no one could have called for help. Picking up the radio, he informs the others that they have company. On the 7th floor, 2 gang members listen attentively to the information. One of them quickly switches channels to ask if someone from the cafe managed to call and alert the authorities. Listening in, the young man from the future smiles as he prepares to answer the question, then stating that while they were taking over the place, some people were making calls and exchanging messages, so someone may have managed to inform someone else about what was happening. The gang leader then switches channels to speak with the lookout on the 1st floor, instructing him to tell the police that the building is under renovation and that everyone there was asked to leave. Also in possession of the 1st floor guard's radio, the heroic young man responds to the command. Feeling more at ease, the robbers on the upper floor state that even if the police come, they won't be able to enter without a warrant. Turning his attention back to Scarlet, the woman asks who the man is. He replies that if she were meant to know, He wouldn't be wearing a mask then, stating that anyone who sees his face is eliminated, immediately pressuring the red-haired woman. The robber again demands the code, saying that this way she will walk out of here unharmed. Just like her secretary, Jessica. With no way out, the woman says that the codes are Prometheus, Ouroboros, and Pandora. Then orders the men to let them go. But to her misfortune, the leader says they will verify them first. Surprised, she asks how, since the communication lines were cut. In response, the robber says they have other means picking up the radio. He relays the 3 codes to one of the men outside the building and asks him to check, but Kelly interrupts and says the codes are fake as punishment. The gang leader fires, but not at the woman. He shoots a bottle of wine instead. Even so, the secretary faints panicked. The red-haired woman starts screaming. Meanwhile, the robber states that playtime is over outside. A police officer asks his partner if he's sure it's not a prank. The other man confirms, saying that the tip he received is legitimate. Approaching the building, they look at the cafe windows, which are covered with signs asking for help. However, one of the officers states that they should leave as this must be a hoax. Despite his concerns, the other obeys, so both get into the car and leave the area. Relieved, the robber outside watches the car drive away, picking up his radio. He informs the leader that the police have left. In response, the leader tells him to keep watching. Holding Scarlett's face, the leader says she looks exhausted, then stating that she only has one more chance before he decides to end everything. Shin Yunha and Lee Tae-ho observe the situation but fail to grasp the gravity of what is happening. Meanwhile, on the ground, the red-haired woman looks at her unconscious assistant. On the road, one of the officers inside the car asks why they are leaving when it's clear that something is wrong. In response, the older man says it's because they wouldn't be able to resolve the situation as the entire building has been taken over. So, they must act wisely to avoid making things worse and pretending nothing is happening as part of the plan. Thus, picking up the radio, they call for reinforcements. Moments later, people inside a white van discuss the identities of the hostages. Looking at a list, a group of 4 men realizes that there are important people in the building, making the situation even more complicated. Upon hearing the name Shin Yunha, one of them is in shock. Everyone wonders why these people had to be in the same place on this particular day. Another man responds that it must be because of Chef Oh Juchu's food. Concerned, one of the team members states that the media will be ruthless if any of these celebrities get hurt. So, they need to handle the situation as efficiently as possible. Arriving at the building, 2 of the men move to the rooftop of the building across the street and inform the captain of their positions. At the entrance, the captain orders everyone to retreat due to an explosive placed at the door. Inside the van, the brown-haired young man asks what they will do in response. The captain says it's now in the hands of counterterrorism. All they can do is wait for them to arrive and secure the perimeter. On the 7th floor, one of the robbers informs the leader that Special Forces police have arrived. So, the leader states that they must proceed with Plan E. Obeying, one of the henchmen points his gun at Lee Tae-ho and orders him to come along. Panicked, the president asks why, especially so suddenly pointing the gun at Shin Yunha. The robber warns that he will go downstairs to deliver a message, unless he wants to be eliminated right there trying to save himself. The man in the brown suit quickly says that the young woman is not his girlfriend. Terrified, the young actress wonders what is happening, while desperately pleading for help in her mind. On the staircase, Nick Kanjin questions how many members the gang has, to have been able to set so many traps on each floor. Suddenly, voices start echoing from the steps above. The robbers are coming down with the president while threatening to eliminate the actress, the future hero's friend, hiding behind a door. The young man positions himself to continue observing. Warning about the traps, one of the robbers says that the man in the brown suit will go first, scaring him even more. Sweating nervously, he starts descending the steps slowly, and as he reaches the last step, he hears a woman's voice coming from an open door. He then approaches to see who might be inside the room. Descending the stairs, the robbers question where all the traps they planted have gone. With a hand gesture, Nick Kanjin signals the president not to reveal his presence. Surprised, the man realizes it was the young man's voice and notices that he has a different expression. The robbers get closer, saying that whoever is there just needs to be taken down so they can move on. The eye alerts him that an enemy is approaching, and the young man quickly strikes, catching the robber completely off guard. Falling to the ground, the robber accidentally shoots one of his allies, but the man was wearing a bulletproof vest. Realizing the situation, The young man grabs the gun and fires at a spot not protected by the vest, then sprinting, he begins attacking the others. Behind him, the man in the brown suit watches everything with his mouth wide open. Then he asks if the young man could be his girlfriend instead of Shin Yunha, but the young man declines the offer. Writhing in pain and completely defeated, the robbers look up at the two from the floor. Nick Kinjin asks the Eye about the other gang members, but she replies that she hasn't detected any further threats, turning his attention to Lee Taeho. The young man asks if he came from the floor, and the man confirms thus. The young man asks about the current situation there. The man explains that the robbers changed their plans and now want a getaway car, which he was supposed to arrange. Suddenly, the gang leader speaks over the radio, having heard screams, throwing the man in the brown suit into a panic. Mimicking the voice of one of the robbers, the young man reports that there were 2 hostages on the 5th floor, but the situation has been resolved. The leader says he thought all floors had been checked, but the young man responded that there was a hidden passage. Noticing the voice change, the president asks how the young man can do that, handing him a bulletproof vest. The young man says that voice mimicry is his specialty. Then, asking about Sher Yunha, the president states that the young woman was fine, but under heavy surveillance. Jang Jane comments that they have probably realized she is a celebrity, afraid something might happen to his friend. The future hero declares that he will go up to the 7th floor, and the man says he will go too because besides being armed, he is also a former army surgeon. The young man asks what his role was in the military. In response, the man says he was part of the public relations division, so the young man refuses to take him along, then tells him that all he needs to do is keep an eye on the unconscious robbers. And if they wake up, just grab the gun and shoot. Upstairs, the gang leader screams while demanding the code. Scarlet replies that she will never reveal it, even if it costs her life. Furious, the man points the revolver at the woman, warning that if that's what she wants, so be it. Suddenly, 2 of his subordinates are thrown aside. Surprised, he looks toward the door and sees the young man who attacked the 2 men. Everyone in the room wonders if the police have finally arrived. One of the robbers grabs Shea Unha, while the others start firing relentlessly. The young man starts moving through the room, dodging the bullets with agility. Jumping off the floor and onto the walls as if it were an everyday thing with his feet, he pushes off, grabs one of the robbers by the arm, and uses him to strike the others. His assistant warns that all of them are wearing bulletproof vests. Grabbing a gun, Nkangin begins to fire. Shocked, everyone watches and murmurs that the young man's speed and strength are inhuman. The Eye informs him that his friend is not in the room. One of the hostages explains that she was taken along with another foreign woman. The young man orders everyone to go down the stairs, find Lee Taho on the 5th floor, and then head to the 2nd floor. Looking for a hiding spot, the leader, along with the remaining henchmen, says he doesn't think the young man is a police officer. One of them asks why they are taking the actress since she won't stop talking. The leader replies that if the police chase them, it can just throw her away, but for now she is useful. Panicked, the young woman pleads for them to stop speaking in a language she doesn't understand. Suddenly, the door bursts open as the young man from the future storms in. 2 of the robbers start running toward him, urging the leader to leave first. Activating the combat mode provided by the AI, the young man flips midair, striking the enemies from behind with a weapon. Furious, another robber starts shooting, but none of the bullets hit the young man. He starts shouting his friend's name as she is held hostage. Understanding the plan, she ducks and the shots hit the robber instead, who falls to the ground, screaming in pain. The leader, still holding Scarlet, prepares to fire while the woman struggles to free herself from his grip. However, changing his mind, the man points the revolver at her and orders the young man to stay put unless he wants her to be shot. Outside the building, the police manage to deactivate the bomb, clearing access to the 1st floor. Opening one of the doors, a hostage emerges along with other people, all with their hands raised. A panicked woman explains that terrorists invaded the cafe and took everyone hostage, but someone even more terrifying than the robbers appeared, and not only dodged every bullet but also defeated the men in the blink of an eye. Other people step forward and start declaring that the young man is a hero. Surprised, the officer asks if they are sure about what they saw beside him. His colleague remarks that it seems like everyone there is hallucinating. Concerned, the captain warns that the gang might have used chemical weapons, so the team must put on gas masks. Inside, with no way out, the young man obeys the robber and drops his weapon, even surprising the AI embedded in his body. Angry, the leader demands to know how the young man got there when he had received information that everything was fine on the other floors. Lifting his shirt, the young man reveals that he has the radios, informing the leader that the person he had been talking to is actually him. Furious, the robber starts firing in his direction. But using a utensil, the young man dodges all the bullets and throws a knife at the man. Hitting him directly, Scarlet breaks free, and the young man instructs both women to use him as a shield and start backing away slowly. Taking off his coat, the gang leader asks where Nakangan came from and what his name is. With a dark expression, the young man says he will only say it once, so that the man should listen carefully. Then, during a rapid sequence of strikes, he spells out every letter of his name on the ground. Mouth agape. The robber is left speechless. John Jian alerts that one of the hostages has a gunshot wound on her arm and needs immediate help. The restaurant's chef appears, holding a first aid kit, explaining that he was guarding the kitchen. As it was his responsibility approaching, the young man begins gathering the necessary items to treat Scarlet's arm wound. The AI informs him that the injury is not too severe, so it will be easy to handle. Finishing quickly, the young man advises the woman to go to the hospital as soon as she leaves to receive proper treatment. Smiling, she thanks him for his help, while the young man's friend is surprised that she speaks Korean. Explaining, Kelly says that her grandmother was Korean. Choi Yoon-ha, irritated, tries to understand the situation, while the woman states that the young man must be a government agent sent to protect her. Responding, he says he is just a local food truck worker on the stairs. The special forces rush up the steps, finding the on the 5th floor, armed and wearing a vest. The agents start shouting, demanding to know who he is. Happy, the man celebrates and says they have finally arrived, thinking he is a robber. The squad advances, ordering him to drop his weapons. Lee Tail reveals his identity and things calm down, allowing the police to shift their focus to the terrorists on the ground. The man explains what happened there and says that he was not the one who took down the robbers. But suddenly, the officers start shouting about the traps in the corner of a wall. Picking up one of the bombs, the man in the brown suit informs them that all of them have been deactivated. Reaching the 7th floor, the squad finds Chef Ju Chul, who laughs as he introduces himself. Then, he says that everyone there is safe, and that the injured person has already received first aid. Shai Yoon-ha waves her arms, happy at the officer's arrival. The police shift their attention to the tied-up and unconscious robbers. Smiling, the young actress comments that the entire gang inside the building has been properly neutralized, leaving the officers embarrassed for having been too afraid to enter earlier. Outside, the captain warns that there may be robbers disguised as civilians, so everyone must be carefully checked in the white van. One of the men, relieved, thanks the young man, saying that thanks to him, a greater disaster was avoided, and that even the leader of the entire operation was identified. The man is Chakal, an international criminal involved in terrorism, robbery, and kidnapping for ransom. And he was wanted even by Interpol. Na Kenjin asks about the other members of the gang, stating that they seem like mercenaries. Surprised, the officer says he is right, all of them were hired guns, fluent Korean. Analyzing the information, the young man says that if that's the case, someone must have lured Scarlet there, and the officer confirms, adding that now the American police will take over the case. Curious, the officer asks why the young man fought all the enemies alone. In response, he says it was simply the right thing to do. Laughing, the officer says it's not that simple, especially since none of the robbers suffered serious injuries, even after being shot. Trying to get answers, the officer says he couldn't find any records of the young man in the military. John Jane, trying to help, shows Na Kong in a list full of excuses for getting out of the situation, so the young man replies that he was off the grid for 2 years, because he was training in isolation in the mountains. Expanding on the lie, he says he spent 7 days fasting under a waterfall, then he wandered through the entire area while training, surviving on wild ginseng whenever he got hungry. From this, he created his own martial art, incorporating weapon techniques using toy guns. His martial art is called Gun Fist, and through its practice, he reached perfection, allowing him to do everything he did. The man beside him listens with his mouth hanging open at the hospital. 2 doctors examine Scarlet's arm wound and are shocked, because the stitching pattern is identical to that of another patient. Trying to find out who did it, one of the men asks who performed the stitching, but the woman questions why that matters, Then stating that she cannot disclose that information, the doctor insists and Jessica jumps into the discussion, shouting that they were attacked by terrorists so they can't reveal anything else. Going to the chief surgeon's office, Lee Jung-go, the doctor says he has good news. Then he explains that he has found the person who stitched another patient's wound as if they had used a sewing machine. In shock, the chief asks for the person's name and the doctor replies that he still doesn't know, but that a victim with identical stitches was treated very recently. The man asks why he let her leave, and if they were at least able to get more information from the police. However, the doctor replies that even the police don't know who it was at the police station. Someone hands an envelope to Park Ki-jung, saying that only one person has been authorized to review the documents inside. In response, the man says this is just an excuse to make him do all the work alone. The other man then says he is only handing over the papers because he is trusted. Opening the envelope and reading the pages, Park Ki-jung is shocked curious. The man beside him asks what he saw. In response, he says that, as stated, only one person can see it. But then, explaining further, he says that the hero of the terrorist incident is apparently the stunt director of a movie starring Shai Yun-ha. And the most shocking part is that they know him. The team leader asks if that person is some kind of criminal. His subordinate denies it and says that the young man is the same one who helped them in an incident with a criminal before. Upon hearing the information, the leader is completely shocked, questioning how they should refer to someone like that in a large meeting. Men in suits discuss the information that the two officers uncovered, saying that even though the target of the investigation is Chikal, they cannot simply ignore Ne Kinjin, who handled everything alone and has already saved someone from a burning building. While walking on a rope, one of the men says he checked the young man's entire background because he thought he was part of a special forces unit, discovering that he was honorably discharged as a sergeant from an administrative unit. Another man asks if that couldn't be a cover. But the leader of the meeting questions why the military would use a combat specialist as an administrative employee. Joining the conversation, another officer says that the young man claimed he had been training in the mountains for 2 years. Confused, the chief asks why his subordinate is joking at a time like this. The same officer replies that he is not joking. 2 days pass, and at the internet cafe, Chai Yona arrives completely disguised. The ad quickly detects the young woman's voice and informs the young man. Turning to look, he asks what she is doing there. In response, the young woman asks if he could be a little kinder then. She hands him a bag. The actress says that since they didn't get to eat last time, she brought ingredients so he could cook, and they could finally eat together. Turning his back, the young man tells her to leave, but she refuses, asking for honesty. He says that if she tells the real reason she is there, he will make the food completely embarrassed. The young woman says that being near him makes her feel at peace. Ignoring the revelation, the young man comments that she brought fresh ingredients, so he will prepare some seafood dishes sometime later. The food is ready. Gathered with the blonde cafe attendant, they observe how delicious everything looks. As she eats, the young actress even becomes emotional. A voice suddenly asks if they can try it too. Scarlett appears, surprising the trio with her presence. Na Kang-un asks how she found the place. In response, the woman says she has friends in Korea, so she simply searched for his name and workplace. Then she reveals that she wants to hire him as her bodyguard. The eye informs him that if he accepts the offer, he won't be able to engage in other activities. Thus, he declines, relieving the woman's security guards. Insisting, Scarlett says he would receive a good salary and many benefits, but he replies that he doesn't need anything at the moment. Convinced, the woman says that if that's the case, she will just buy something to eat before leaving. After eating, she is in disbelief at how good the meal tastes. Standing up, she thanks the young man and says she is leaving now as she has a trip to take. But before that, she wants to know if he would be interested in working as a part-time chef at a party she is hosting. Following Jang Jae-in's advice, the young man takes the woman's contact card. Looking at Shin Yun-ha, who is visibly jealous, the red-haired woman remembers who she is. She asks the young woman to remember her because she is the ultra-beautiful actress from Sunny Days. In the car, Jessica asks Scarlett if everything went well. In response, she says that everything went as planned. Seeing the happiness on her boss face, the secretary asks what the reason for her joy is. Smiling, the woman says she managed to discover some new information. Because Mei Kinjin turned out to be an incredible cook, and she will get to see him again soon.